Pass the ammunition. That'd be my goal, my suggestion. All right, so I guess we're live. So we're doing the March, no, yeah, March 2015 show of Every Second Matters. So if you're listening to this, this is a podcast slash live hangout, or I guess the other way around. It's a live hangout that turns into a podcast, and this is something that, does anybody remember when we started these? Somewhere in the middle of 13, I think. So a couple of years now, almost, and it just started out with a bunch of people that were doing these live chats on YouTube, and occasionally we would let them turn into a video afterwards, but a lot of times they were just sort of, what do you call that? They would exist for a few hours while we were having the conversation, and then half the time people just either didn't intentionally turn them into a video. I think we had to do that for a while, but then eventually people just sometimes didn't leave them up. So, these conversations kind of came and then left. They weren't really being archived or anything. And while we had a lot of good conversation, we had a lot of good ideas and points and stuff. I'm sure people learned from them, had a good time. We weren't really accomplishing much. So I think that, along with the frustration of 2013, which was a crazy year, we had the Sandy Hook stuff at the end of 2012, and then we had the president and everybody shaking their fists at gun owners, and we had a rally of support for the defense of our freedom and the Second Amendment rights that provide that freedom. And then towards the end of the year, it seemed like we kind of lost that momentum, and we wanted to do something to stop some of the apathy or whatever, some of the frustration from just the overwhelming amount of stuff that was out there and options that are available to people that are on the pro-freedom or pro-gun side of things. So we started talking about what we could do and how we could maybe raise awareness, and I think it was also it started with the idea that some of the states, individual states, have these crazy infringements on the Second Amendment that some of us in other states just don't even realize. We don't live there, or that we don't get enough people from those states crying out. So sometimes we would hear about these things and feel like we wanted to do more. So we've tried to figure out what we could do, and we wanted to do something that wasn't going to add to the noise or the confusion. And we all and this was over the course of a few conversations, probably over the course of a month maybe, where a couple of us kept kept bringing this topic up and thinking about what we could do. And I think thinking back then now, I think we started thinking about carrying an open holster, and then that turned into carrying an empty holster to kind of signify the inability to carry open. And then that kind of changed to some sort of a T-shirt for all the people that are on campuses and things, where an open holster might be an issue. And then in the discussion of what we could do for T-shirts, or something that was a little less obnoxious, I guess, or alarming than it's a holster in a school or something, we came up with the idea of a logo that might start some conversations, and then that kind of transformed into what we have today, which is a very simple logo that just has the word every, and then the number 2 with ND behind it for second, and then the word matters. So it just says Every Second Matters in a big black and white logo. And the idea was to wear that shirt or that hat or that patch around, or I think we were thinking about armbands and bracelets and stuff. But the idea was to have a logo that people didn't quite recognize or maybe didn't quite understand, and they would ask, hey, what is that? What does that mean? Why are you wearing that? And then you could look around and decide if it was a good opportunity to do so, and if it was, you could start a conversation about firearms with that person. Ideally, that would be someone who maybe wasn't a gun guy, or even if it is a gun guy, maybe it's somebody at work that you didn't realize was shared your interests in the shooting sports. So it was to spur conversations, and then if it wasn't a perfect time to have that conversation, it was that seed, or it was that kernel. And then when it hours later or days later, when you do find there's sitting in the car and you have nothing else to do, you could start that conversation. Hey, you remember you asked me about my patch? Let's talk about that. And that was the concept. People then started to do that. Cork, who isn't Cork in here? No, Cork started the Spreadshirt thing, so he's got some shirts out there, basically at cost. We ran a couple of series of patches, basically at cost, and that got the ball rolling. So then as people started going out with the logos, either on the 2nd or elsewhere throughout the month. We would get together on the 2nd of every month like we're doing now, and we would talk about the kind of things, the conversations we got started and what was going on throughout the month. So the second day of every month became sort of the meeting day for this kind of loosely organized awareness campaign. And then that's been a couple years now, so it's kind of gained and lost in its popularity, and people have kind of gained and lost interest in it. So I guess it sort of evolved to be a bit more of, an organization without direction. So this year I've kind of tasked myself with, instead of just letting it dwindle away, I do think the idea is cool. I went to SHOT Show with some of the tan patches, the second batch of patches that we had made up, and handed a few out to friends. And I think I talked about this last month. Oleg Volk, who has been one of my personal role models in this whole individual just stating their mind about guns and doing it loud enough or maybe obnoxious enough for other people to hear it, and keep that conversation moving, or keep that idea of freedom out there. Anyway, I was always a big fan of his, still am, and he saw the patch, asked about it. I told him a little bit shorter than I just described here about the deal, and he thought it was a great idea. So that's given me even more prompting to take this thing a little bit further. So in January we had Charles Heller on, who's affiliated with both the JPFO, the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, a national firearms lobby, as well as the Arizona Citizens Defense League, which is, for me in Arizona, another organization I'm very proud to say I'm a member of since the beginning. And they've done all kinds of great things, following the example of Vermont and some of the other states that have had very, little interference from the federal government with their gun laws, and they've been able to spearhead Arizona's move towards that, and that's been able to be the other states have used that, our example, like Florida and other states. So hopefully we'll have more people on. And this month I tried to get Alan Gottlieb on. It was my failing there, though. I'm not good at scheduling things or getting people enough lead time. So at least I got the ball rolling this month. So we do have the emails going back and forth. Maybe we'll be able to schedule it out for next month. So since we didn't really schedule any guests this month, I would like to keep the momentum going. So what I think we're going to talk about this month, if everybody's okay with it, of course we're going to talk about what we might have done today to start conversations and the results of that, and what we might have done throughout the month. But then for the rest of the show, I'd like to talk about some of the things that we can do with Every Second Matters so that it becomes less of a burden for anybody and more of an accumulation of knowledge. I've been using this example. I like to think that we're going to put some amount of effort into this. I want the people that come along next, or the people that come along that follow us, to stand on our shoulders and not have to do the same work we've done to get to the same point we left it. I want us to build a ramp so that they can easily get to as far as we've gotten, so that they can leap from there and go even further. So we've been changing around gun channels, another project that we do online, which is sort of a social media for gun owners, made by gun owners. And as we've been building that, most of the guys in the chat today are familiar with that. We're going to talk about what we can do over on gun channels, what we might add to it, what we, kind of a wish list, and then hopefully encourage people that might be out there listening. Again, live, there are some people listening now, but then more people will listen as this becomes a podcast in the future. And if you do listen to this and you feel like this is something you might be interested in participating in or helping out, check us out at everysecondmatters.us or at gunchannels.com/everysecondmatters. All right, so I don't know how long I've been talking here, for about an hour or something, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce everybody, and then we'll get started. So thanks, everybody, for sticking with me through my, whatever you call that, diatribe there. And we'll start with Ballistic. Thanks for joining us.
What's up, guys? Ballistic Expansion. We have a podcast every Sunday, Young Guns Podcast, so check that out. And also have a YouTube channel I run under the same name, Ballistic Expansion.
Right on. With talking about your sports shooting and growing up with firearms, whatnot.
Yep.
I shouldn't say growing up with, but basically you're starting your journey of buying firearms and figuring out what you're going to get. So interesting to watch your path, because a lot of us, I was thinking about it the other day when you guys were talking, you guys were already talking about buying 308s. I remember, well, that's another chat for another day maybe, but it is interesting listening to you guys who are right off the bat able to basically buy anything you want. It's awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
And no, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, G. Good to be here.
That'll bring us to Edge. Yes, ladies, Edge is here.
Edge with 2006. Also, we do a Friday night chat. Topics vary, mainly with guns, concealed carry, all kinds of neat stuff. And I also do host a gun channel on YouTube with the same name, Edge for 2006. Appreciate the invite tonight.
You bet. Is that like your new thing? Like every time you start to talk, like a big bass drum's going to go?
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Gone on order.
We got Z.
Aloha. Thanks for having me.
Well, that reminds me, I always forget to do it, but we got Ballistic is over in Georgia. No, where are you at?
Texas.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And then we got Edge, California, I believe. Then we got Z in Hawaii.
That's right.
No, I think Edge is in Texas also. And then we've got Dano joining us. Thanks for joining us.
From a friendly flyover state of Illinois.
Yeah, these states in the middle don't really matter, but we'll insist on complaining about things that we have problems with, right? And then I'm in Arizona. So, like I say, we've got invitations out to others. We're leaving a seat for Alan and for Charles and for Sean from Florida Carry, who are, the real deals, people out there actually in the trenches, getting the work done for decades. And we're just trying to really shine the light on what those guys are doing. So, like I say, we'll leave some seats open for them and then other people that show up as we go along here. So you guys have sort of seen what we're doing on, well, no, let's talk about what we did for the month. Did anybody do anything? I was working on computers all day and only went out to go kind of walk in for some exercise. I didn't wear my shirt. I honestly forgot about it. So anybody do anything more than I did today?
Started to walk a few people through the gun purchasing procedure out here. A few people were asking, well, not a few, there were two different people today that were talking about potentially trying to purchase their first firearm out here. And as you all know from talking to me in several chats, that there's several hoops that you have to jump through and everything like that. So I just tried to, give them the straightforward information, kind of let them know what it's going to take. Reminded a few more people of the importance of it was a few days ago, but about the M855. Mentioned that to a couple of people that were, some of them were somewhat knowledgeable of what was going on, and then a couple of the other ones were like, well, what are you talking about? So I got to run my mouth for a few minutes. It was kind of good.
And of course, food being my greatest weapon. On Mondays, I do lunch for my girlfriend's office, and she works in a school. So, talk about the ultimate no carry zone. And plus two, they're all in academia. So, basically speaking, just with everybody around eating and having a captive audience or something like that, the conversation is usually easily steered around that, especially with legislation being open in Texas right now with the three big bills in there. And then I spent the rest of the day with the Z and Sandy helping out. We're trying to envision and set up a structure with the groups. We have the Texas Gun Rights Group that we created, and we're just going through all the features of all the upgrades that you did to the site and trying to come up with a template whereby we can set this thing up and then preload it with all the local gun right orgs that are like here in my state of Texas and send them out an email and say, hey, your spot on gunchannels.com is set up and you're here, come on over and do it, because you can set up subgroups within a group, so each organization can have their own little page that aggregates up to the state page, and we can do a mass email off an email list, and once we get all the bugs worked out of that, it could literally be as simple as any one of us in any state can just copy that group over and load in their local gun organizations and send out a mass email and invite all those groups in to join their little state thing as subgroups.
I love that whole idea. That's really, if people are listening and you head over to everysecondmatters.us, we have a tab there for a list of the groups, which was, well, the beginnings, the sketch pad for what it sounds like you're talking about. So I'm digging it. It's one of the reasons I was so enthusiastic about jumping into this new stuff on the Gun Channel, so we'll be able to facilitate this, because it's one thing to have a webmaster do it on a website, but to have a bunch of people work together, and then, like you say, you can create places for these organizations to participate, not to duplicate their efforts, but to supplement what they're doing. And this way, that's great for the people building all this stuff, but then the people that are out there just looking to, seeking out new information are going to hopefully have, one spot that they can check out. And so they'll go to Gun Channels, then they'll go to the gun rights stuff, they'll go to their state, and you'll have that list for them with links to all their other places. And if we can get a couple of them, or ideally all of them, to participate, then and that'll even people will be able to see in their area what groups are available to them. They can pick which ones they're going to work best with, and now their resources are going to something that's going to get the most bang for the buck, right?
And plus, too, what we figure is if we get the structure and we get the pattern and the framework right, then realistically speaking, it's so much less duplication of effort, duplication of links and posts, because everything's like aggregating up and down, and then any one person, if they want to administer the Texas group or they want to administer the Maryland group or more than one group, it's all exactly the same, and the information again isn't duplicated, and you can look at just what's relevant to you, because theoretically it could be from your local city level all the way up to the federal level.
Exactly. And there's no exclusion here. You can have multiple people run the groups. In fact, I'm hoping that multiple people help, co-run them, so that there's always somebody there to jump on and update something or clean something up if it needs to be. And going along the same lines, like you say, if there's a group in your state for hunting, and there's a group in your state for CCW, and there's a group in your state for campus carry, and there's a group in your state for open carry, having all those in one spot, well, hopefully should just make everyone's life a lot easier. Kind of distracted because I'm chatting with everybody. We're still trying to figure out the new format and everything over on the Gun Channel, so that's where we're getting a lot of our feedback. We also have this running on the YouTube, so I'm going to pop that open here and see if we're getting any comments on the YouTube side. Some of you guys that have been around, since the beginning of, or for a while now with Every Second Matters, what kind of stuff, if you had to, think of this as a wish list, what kind of stuff would you put on the wish list for things that we could try to accomplish?
If I can throw my 2 cents out there, I guess if I were king for a day, that when I go to the main page or the main feed, in addition to general comments that people post up there, that any groups that I belong to, that any of those comments also go directly into the main feed. Not necessarily every group's comment, but the groups that I belong to.
Yep, that's how it should.
And then I can customize it.
That's the easy one. Yep, we can definitely. It's already designed to do that. In fact, as more and more people sign up, we'll be definitely making it that way. Making it only that way, because otherwise it'd be too much info to even see.
Right, because right now, if I have something that, as an example, applies to Everything That Matters, but it's also kind of a general info I might have to post it twice.
Well, we talked about it off air, but the ability to do the Instagram on some of the channels too. You could, around that time of the month, right before, you could start taking, some pictures of the patches, and if you have any other apparel, some gun-oriented stuff as well, just to kind of get people interested or asking, what's up with that.
Yeah, I really enjoy the Instagram side of things, and I think that'd be a really, really nice addition. And we already have it on the profiles, which I think is really cool. So that'd be great to have on the channel as well.
And one of the things that G put up was something called the pin board, which is kind of almost like a Google Plus-ish looking summary of the groups that are out there. And when you hover over the groups, you get the list of the share icons that you can click and share with Instagram, with Facebook, with this, whatever. So that should make that real simple for everybody.
It's cool, man. Good stuff.
Thanks for all that hard work, G. It's really shaping up real nice. Easier to use, more productive to be able to, with more links and just way more useful.
And I've got a project that I'm working on, and we'll kind of see how it works out as far as on gun channels, how it unfolds. But I have a Freedom of Information Act that I've submitted a couple weeks back, and regardless of what I get back, and I'm kind of doing this on my own, but it's in regards to gun rights, and the question I have has to do with the SIG brace. But to kind of post some of that information in Every Second Matters, so people can learn from what I did wrong as well as what I did right. As far as if they want to submit, how do you submit? Where do you submit it to? In addition to that request, there are supporting documents you also have to submit, which, unless you do a lot of research, is not really clear. So hopefully I'll be posting my journey of trying to get an answer out of the ATF specifically, using a Freedom of Information Act request, but also I'll be scanning these documents and posting them in the Every Second Matters groups, so people can see what was my question, what kind of answer did I receive, if any, or do I need to revise my question. And of course I'll be asked, if I do, which I very well might, I'll be asking for assistance for that from the group.
When the black helicopter lands on your lawn, you will have got it correct, Dano-san.
I was trying to hold the saying. I was like, when the indictments come in, let me know, or you come out on time.
And I may or may not have something coming after the 16th of March, with the M855 potential ban coming up.
That's good stuff, Dano.
And it's not always based off of the decision that's made. Sometimes it's based off of timing. I'll give you a perfect example. The cutoff date for public comment on that, I'm not trying to change the chat, but is the 16th. If they come out with a decision on the 17th, I guarantee you I will be filing one as to how they managed, in essence, not in these exact words, but how did they manage to go through all of them in 24 hours? Because they're supposed to actually read them if they're submitted by the 16th. But that's just an example.
Yeah, and I don't think I think they're still behind on them, because I know I got an email from Gun Owners of America, or not, I think it may have been GOA or it may have been Georgia Carry. It's one of the two, talking about how many, they were hours and hours behind, the fax machine at the ATF was backed up.
Yep.
It's taking so long for all the responses to come in, so that's great, really good.
But that's just an example of another way to look at not just the response they give us, but another way to go after the machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why it kind of worked too with the trust, because for a while there, the current administration was pushing the ATF to get rid of the trust and everything like that, and everybody's like, oh no, that's not going to happen. And everybody, submitted their opinions and everything, and contacted their representatives, and there hasn't been anything else new about it since then. And as of now, still currently you can use a trust to, for your NFA items and stuff like that.
So we're kind of going back and forth on things, but since we're talking M855 a little bit, you guys have been putting out that we've been trying to promote that link to Save M855. So
Yes.
I was doing stuff today too, and I went and double checked that link, and that link has been down since the 27th. So they've been, I think it's almost, I know it's difficult because we're all learning this, but here's a learning, an element we can take from this. We've all been pushing the link without our due diligence of checking that link at all, and we need to double check on stuff like that, because now, like I say, when I went to go double check it today for my first time, it turns out the link had been down since the 27th, and they've been allowing people to continue to use the form. And I don't know if everybody saw the little red warning up at the top that said this has been down since the 27th. We're just getting busy signals. So, it'd be discouraging if people went to the link and filled out the form and then clicked the button and then left thinking that they had been successful in accomplishing something when really they hadn't done anything. So that would be the worst, right? Because then we lost a voice. So I've switched over to recommending the Gun Owners of America link, which is still at the top of Gun Channels. It was one of the 3 that we posted. That one is still working. It's on the Gun Owner of America's website, so it's a little more established, entity. But I think more importantly, what I liked about that one, when I compared the two, and this is, again, I'm not complaining about anything, I'm just saying this is a learning curve for all of us. The one from the Gun Owners of America has little asterisks for required information. We're all familiar with that. When you fill out some things, some items are required, some aren't. They require the ones that the congressman or whoever are going to need to verify that you're the actual constituent. So I found that to be pretty interesting, because the other one, basically, if I remember correctly, let you put in an area code and then sent off the thing. So it's going to be taken with a certain amount of weight compared to the Gun Owners of America, which comes along with all the the I's dotted and the T's crossed, for that federal form. We all know we should all know how federal forms need to be perfect for them to qualify as an actual form.
Well, that zip code is merely to designate, in addition to the F, if you choose to send anything to your congressman or your senators, you can. That's the point of the zip code. And actually, I'm reading that exact same message that you were referring to earlier, and it does not allude to the fact that they've lost any of that information. It's just they've not been able to send it. They still have it. And they currently have over 25,000 of these in their queue that the ATF has not received yet. So it's not that they've lost people's requests to send. They've just not been able to send them, and it appears they've been holding them in a queue until the ATF is back up.
So there's no chance that they just unplugged it on Friday?
The ATF, more than likely, right?
Yeah.
Or they put it on a do not call
that's
block
certainly
list or something.
Or they ran out of fax paper.
The government, and my experience with anything with, always does everything on Friday, so you forget about it over the weekend.
Right.
It's the way they've always done shit.
Well,
But,
that's why we've posted several other avenues of attack. The GOA actually came out with a couple of different ways. One of them was to defund the ATF. One of them was to rally the senators and congressmen to not to rattle the cage of the ATF about this ammo. And then I think there was a third one that they also came through.
But Island, that's a great example. That letter going, that's in the Senate. That's going around. They're trying to get 100 signatures. They may or may not get it, but to send to the ATF saying that was not our intent.
And then the other one was the hold up the appointment of the new Attorney General. That was one of the other ones that the GOAs, they're on top of a lot of stuff. I've really been impressed with what kind of different avenues of attack they've come up with in the past, 2-3 weeks even.
The good news of a new attorney general being appointed is they roughly got less than a year before they get kicked out with whatever new administration gets in there.
But kind of going along the lines of what GWeb, I would certainly encourage anyone to use any source, whether it's the ATF email that was given to them, which I've also used. But you absolutely have to put your name at the bottom. You just can't put insert name and then leave it blank without your name.
Right.
You have to put your name. You have to put your town and state.
So this is all about talking about this stuff. Have you guys heard anything on any national level shows or anything about this? I know that it's been getting out there into the mainstream news a bit in various ways.
I saw a short, maybe a 3-minute blip on it on Fox News, but I saw it via the YouTube. But somebody had taken it off of Fox News and reposted it.
Yeah, I haven't seen much. I watch, I check out the Huffington Post and the Blaze every day just to see what's going on, get a better contrast of both things, current issues, and I haven't seen much on it being discussed. It's not being advertised or trying to get any feet behind it, or legs behind it, sorry.
I guess later last week, when Congress decided they were getting involved, there was probably the peak in lamestream media's presentation of it, and even those you have to be careful because they try to present it in one light, but there's a lot of backhanded compromise type words talked into the interviews. But on the national level, basically the latest blurb from today is Congress saying that the ATF needs to back off because this ban is in direct violation of Second Amendment rights, and they post updates about how many people have signed on to it and how much support they have. But that's the most recent thing I've seen on the national.
GWebs, did you say that other forum was on GOA or was over on Second Amendment Foundation?
Northern America. It's the one that I left up in the announcement on Gun Channel's main page.
I believe I put the link in the internal. If it's the same one you're talking about, it's the one that's the letter.
I think it's on also Sandy's channel of the gun rights. I think it's definitely one of the discussions or posts in there because I definitely posted them to there as well.
And one thing that we need to be aware of or to look for, especially in the bigger news stories, is the way they put spins on things. The one interview that I saw was a retired law enforcement officer / trainer / whatever coming out against an open carry bill in his state, and the reason why he was coming out against the bill was because he was a trainer and wanted mandatory training. And there was another one with the M855 ban where his statement was, armor-piercing ammo is not the problem, it's the little guns that are the problem. Okay, so again, once it's in the mainstream media with every positive message, they manage to put some sort of negative spin on there. So we have to be careful what kind of ammunition, pun intended, we're giving them to fire back at us.
Thinking about when I do my gun channel chat, one thing I want to do is bring up the good stories that, do some research and have it, bring it up in the, at a certain portion of the chat. Or bring up the good stories of people that do carry and the results that that are in good favor that aren't reported. I see a lot on the Blaze and stuff because a lot of that is ignored unless it's some kind of derogatory spiel on guns and somebody killing somebody. That it's always sends a negative view in the mainstream media. So think about adding at least about 1 or 2, maybe 3 stories and whatever I can populate that week.
It makes me think it'd be cool to have, I don't know how you would do it, it'd be tough to do, I suppose, but to have conversations with people that have carried their whole lives and never needed to use their guns, because I think that's probably the best example of firearms serving their purpose. Ultimately, means that they had them if they needed them and never needed them. But the fact that they were there means that the criminal element never grew to the point where they would actually need them. So I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in the good way. But I don't know if that would really be as effective as I think it would be. But it would be neat to talk to old guys and gals who had been carrying their whole lives and said, you know what, I've been carrying this little gun around for the last 80 years and never needed it, and don't feel bad about having had it. Same way we might think of our fire extinguishers.
Well, I mean,
fire extinguisher with me, around the house my whole life, never needed it, couldn't be happier with it.
well, there. I mean, I know you see a lot of. This is a different scene because peace officers or Leos are different, but there are a lot of peace officers, Leos, that have had their gun and never shot anybody with it as well, and but they still carry one because that's part of their job, and it's somebody who decides to still carry every day, so it's pretty much the same kind of deal, just different genre of classification of your authority.
I would have to say that there has to be more that have not shot in the line of duty than that have, just by the sheer numbers of how many police officers or LEOs there's been.
Definitely.
I mean, it has to be a staggering number in
When
the
you think of
not
like all
shot.
the meter maids and weird cops we don't think about, people flying around in helicopters and just doing all the jobs that needs to be a police officer, but they don't ever get in any interactions at all like that. Then all the people that support them and all the the guys in the police stations that are doing paperwork or running the prisons and jails and stuff. I mean, there's a heck of a lot of sworn officers that probably don't even touch a gun, let alone use the thing ever.
Well,
Even the guys that are trained and in the line of duty or in in the face of danger, even those guys hardly ever have to do it. It doesn't do us any disservice. Like I think Noah was saying earlier, the same kind of concept is that we can't just look at the fear that that's what they want, the other side wants. We don't live in fear of fires. It's not why we have fire extinguishers. We just have them because it's prudent. It's easier to put out a fire with a fire extinguisher than some other method. We don't have firearms because we live in a violent society or we're under imminent danger. We just have them because it's the easiest thing we can carry around. It's the easiest thing my grandma can carry in her purse to save herself from a coyote to a stampeding elephant. And I don't mean she's going to shoot the elephant, but if she needed to duck into an alley and make a noise or something, it's a useful tool to allow a person without the physical attributes to manage, in a world where there's things that are larger than them. Same way you carry a bandage, it's a precaution.
I'd just like to take a step back before we go forward. We were talking about some websites earlier that were kind of like one-stop shops, to get your comments out there. But I just want to shoot out there for if you want to contact the ATF directly via email, so you don't have to worry about if something's going to get caught in a queue or if there's going to be enough paper in the fax machine. I'm going to read to you the email address, and I'll repeat it. It's apacomments@atf.gov. apacomments@atf.gov. And then you're just dealing with them directly. Send them you're either for it, you're against it, your name, your address, done.
And that's APA like Alpha Papa Alpha.
Comments with an S.
So instead of giving us something like M855@atf.gov or info@atf.gov, they gave us 3 letters that sound similar in conversation with a word that could or could not be plural. Thank you, ATF, for making it almost as confusing as it can be for no reason. Thanks.
Yeah, of course, the APA stands for armor-piercing ammo. And
yeah, it's not because it sounds like an A or a T or a B or a G or any other letters spoken, but whatever. Yeah. I'm sure they did that accidentally. Oops. But thanks for bringing it up. We do need to encourage as many people as possible. I was at a gun shop the other day, and thing came up a few times I asked earlier, maybe we'll talk about it more, but I've heard some national level media, and I don't even remember. It wasn't NPR, so it was something, right wing or right leaning, and the impression they were given is that, it was one of these gun shows, the nationally syndicated gun shows over the weekend. It was implying that all 223 ammo was being banned, for one, and that it's the most economical brand for sports shooting, and that they're going after the ARs, and this is the way they're doing it. And we've had talks in other live chats like this on gun channels since then, in the last couple of nights. But what do you guys think of that when they're trying to kind of dumb it down to that? And then I guess I understand if they're they only have a moment or two in the national spotlight, to try to get the point across. But then the talking heads start to talk about those points, which are abbreviated points maybe, or kind of the gist of it, but not the actual thing. So now they're talking about 2 layers off from the actual points, and I don't know if that's doing us any good again.
I've seen it on Facebook, a couple posts that are like that. 223 ammo is being banned, and I was like, and I click on it, and you see this guy, and it's just some article or some op-ed somebody's kind of going on a tirade on, and I don't know if they're doing it intentionally, to poke the bear, to sit there and get everybody upset about it, but like you said, that's not the case.
Personally, I don't think it's an effective strategy. I think it's part of the divide and conquer thing, and I think a little part of it is us. When I say us, I mean certain people on our side of the issue using the same sort of irrational sensationalization techniques that we despise when the opposition uses them against us. So I've seen everything from they're banning all 223 ammo to we're not doing enough to everybody picking their little personal thing of like, well, I basically sport shoot, so all my focus is on the sport shooting thing, and well, I'm a hunter, so I really don't care at all because I don't use 223 at all. There was a video posted last week from I believe it was a Vermont or New Hampshire hunters group that was 4 background checks, and that was a real polished ad. So that's one thing. Like we talk about trying to unify the message, I think that's very important because on both sides of this issue, there's just a lot of crazy out there.
Wow, I like to hope that that's some group sponsored by Bloomberg trying to masquerade as a pro-gun thing, but it'd suck if it wasn't.
Something I mentioned in the side chat, and I know over at Gun Channels I've been kind of Johnny Appleseed on the 855 ammo issue, but I'm trying to encourage people, in addition to whether it's the one-stop shops or emailing directly, is to share your thoughts and concerns on your Facebook page, because a lot of your friends who may be gun friendly may not understand why and how this may affect them, which may either motivate them to actually do something and get off the couch per se, rather than say, well, I'm a hunter, this doesn't affect me because I don't use that, or I'm a handgun guy, that doesn't affect me, I don't use that.
Good point. Or a family member or a friend or somebody who's, like you say, just kind of watching the page because they're worried about what your kid's doing or something, and then, I didn't think about it. I've heard about it on the news, but now that Johnny's talking about it, I know that it's important, and I'll look more into this, or I'll call Johnny or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So real quick, here's the just want to share the contact info. If anybody watching, you can actually see it on my screen now. I'm sharing it.
Do a hold down the control key on your keyboard and wiggle the scroll wheel on your mouse, and that should make it zoom in so we can see it a little bit easier.
If you click on a screen, G-Webs, it'll lock it on for the future viewers.
You told me how to direct my own video down?
So if you want, you can.
Just giving you a tip. Just giving you a tip.
So we've got 3 options here. You can, like we mentioned, you can send an email to the APA comments web address. If you want to send a fax, you can do it that way. Or if you want to send old-fashioned snail mail, you can send them a letter. And
how messed up is it that they give us 3 options to talk to them, and then one of them is a fax machine, which I guess I can understand it because FFLs use fax machines for faxing their licenses to each other. But who else uses a fax machine anymore? So anyway, a fax machine is one of the thirds. 33% of the way that we can contact them is a fax machine, and they turned that off days ago. Nice. That's transparency. But thanks for sharing that, and I'll leave it on the screen for a bit because nobody cares what our icons or whatever look like, and that's important info. I was going to mention, I guess the reason I brought up the thing about the national coverage, I don't know if you want to call it that, the like national reference to the situation is about this, the best I'll give it, is like I said, I was hanging out at the gun shop the other day, and long enough to see more than one customer come in, and in that time, let me try to guess, I don't know, 20 customers, let's say, and 2 of them mentioned something, and mostly it was, oh, you still got 223 on the shelves. So again, it was covered out here, and I didn't listen to every radio station or anything, but I get the impression it was covered out here, kind of saying, those gun grabbers are at it again, so you better go hoard, better start hoarding because the ammo's on the way out. AR-15s are next, so any ammo you can grab. And I'm assuming they must have talked to a store or something that was out, and I didn't get the impression that these guys were out just trying to vacuum it up from whatever stores might have it left, but they were genuinely surprised that there was any on the shelf. And anyway, again, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way that we've got these. Well, I guess I shouldn't expect more from it, but we got these, established national media outlets or whatever, and the message that they choose to get across about this is more confusing, it seems, than effective. All right, I unclicked from your screen, so you're not.
Yeah, you're drifting down there. Something that I saw, just last week, when I thought it was kind of ironic, is, with this and exactly what you're talking about, G-Webs, some people misunderstanding the issue and then going after some of the other 223 or 5.56 ammo that's not necessarily brought up as an issue, is that I'm starting to see ARs really down back to similar prices as to what they used to be. I saw some in a catalog just last week for $5.99 complete. Now, these were off-brand manufacturers that people probably haven't heard of.
But that's still a complete rifle for a decent price.
You can build an AR right now for right under $500 if you shop right.
Right. I'm just contrasting it to 2 years ago when they were, very high priced because of the.
Dude, I remember this one gun local shooting range. They still had some Stag lowers, and they wanted because they overpaid for them. They're still trying to get their $400 for a Stag lower. I'm like, yeah, good luck.
So that's one of the things that I've heard. In fact, I think it was it Alan Gottlieb this weekend on Charles's shows, because he was a guest on Sunday, and they were talking about M855, but he also had another guest, and I guess I wasn't listening carefully enough to remember which one was which, but one of them was suggesting that, well, I don't know if he was suggesting it or if he was simply observing the phenomenon or the concept that the government, people that in the beginning of 2013 stated to us, well, actually, in the preliminaries or the preliminaries to the federal, the national election, the Democratic Party put out a platform that said we are okay with hunting guns and that's it, and we're going to take back all the other guns from you as if they were theirs to take back. Right? We know that from their platform. When Obama ran for office, he stated he was, well, I don't know if he stated too hard, but he definitely made fun of people for being, gun owners and Bible thumpers or whatever they were. So he's just simply doing what he said. In 2013, he said he was going to do a bunch of executive actions because the Congress wasn't, doing what he wanted them to do. So he's literally just doing what he said he was going to do. And we get these people on the national media now reporting it as if well, as if that this is the final blow or this is the last strike, and well, I don't think it is. Do we?
Well, it depends on what you mean by the final blow or the final strike. I mean, it's not if the ammo were to go away, that would be the end of everything. Certainly not. But it's some of the precedents that would justify it going away that would be the problem, the legacy problem. A perfect example of that is this would then justify the use of the California Condor for banning ammunition across the entire United States, because that's one of the reasons they're using to justify the legitimacy of this ban.
Well, going on to what G was talking about, as far as President Obama, they say he's the first really YouTube president, because before then, there just wasn't that much exposure, and stuff usually died down. Issues, politics in general, and things just keep get repeated and keep being reposted. And I think some of that, unfortunately, that popularity overwhelms his administration's decisions on how they approach stuff. They're too worried about being not cool, and as a result of that, here's what you have. Instead of being more concerned of their decisions, and their decision making.
So sorry, I was distracted while I was addressing chats and texts and stuff. I guess what I was rambling on about there was that the news is making it, or excuse me, Alan or somebody on the radio shows this weekend was making it seem as though since they've gone after, or they've told us what they want to go after, and then they've proceeded to do so, and each time they do it, we respond with, and I mean, how else can we say it? All we respond with is panic buying. We do very little to counteract the actual process that they're continuing to do these slaps in the face with us, and our only reaction as a group seems to be the outrage that we voice, and then, well, unfortunately we voice quietly, or to at least to the choir. We don't voice it to the right people, it seems like, but then we go out and be panic buy. And the concept I guess they were trying to get across this weekend, I think, was that is it possible that the anti-gun people have figured out that we're Pavlov's dog, and if they yank on this cord, we're going to go out and spend a bunch of money, which helps everybody in the country, because every time anybody spends money, right, it helps. And then we proceed to buy up a bunch of ammo, so that we then are in these artificially shortages. So is it possible, I guess, that the anti-gunners are just yanking this string, and this is just another thing they can do that they're going to get the most bang for their buck, knowing that we're going to tighten the noose ourselves on this end?
It's not possible. It's actual. It's not a guess or a theory. It's a very real thing. Let's not forget that.
Well, are you saying it's real that that did happen, or it's real that they must be guiding it because it's too much coincidences stacking up on each other?
There is no coincidence at this dollar level, period, or this government level. It does not exist. Okay, you have to realize the ammo manufacturing companies are owned by huge hedge funds. They're owned by boards of directors stacked with the same people who are and I'm not going to say anti-gun. They're not anti-gun. They're anti-you and I having guns. Okay, they stand to profit off of this, and that's part of the problem with not looking at the bigger picture. Is it's not just one particular subsection is going to lose something and another subsection is going to gain. There's a broad brush here. Okay, the ammo manufacturers stand to gain from our panic buying, who, basically speaking, like I said, fund a lot of the high-profile corporations that lobby the government on the liberal side. Okay, they're tied together. There's no distinction between the corporations and the government at this point. Okay? So these plans, we tend to focus on one little part of it and say that, oh, this is the reason, this is the reason. There's multiple reasons, there's multiple beneficiaries here. So to give you an example, one of the articles that was everywhere last week was titled, Obama's going to use executive order to ban this ammunition. Now, is this his track record? Yes. Is this possible? Absolutely. However, it's not a statement of fact. It was literally fear-based propaganda that drove not only green tip sales worse than they were from the beginning, but now the reports of like all 223 being scooped up because of all of the other rounds when they do this, all of the other rounds that are going to be under this umbrella. So again, it's us falling victim to the same things that we accuse the other side of, and you're absolutely spot on with the Pavlov's dog thing. So what's the benefit? The benefit is our public image makes us look like they want us to look. We actually shoot ourselves in the foot, and we drive the ammo prices up, and we put the money back in the pockets of the big corporations who are lobbying the government with money to do exactly this. At this level, there is no coincidence.
I saw a written letter, and I believe it was on the same thing that you're saying, where it was saying, you know, by executive order, Obama, you know, has done it versus is considering doing it or might do it, which is totally different than what's actually happening. And it came out on a Friday, which means there was no because it was the weekend, there was no time for clarity. But it's the way the article was written is if Obama had already written an executive order that Friday during the day, meaning, oh, now we don't even need to ask for comments, so you better go out this weekend and buy.
Right, and here's the scary part.
That article was wrong.
And they're not on anti-gun sites. These articles are on pro-gun websites.
Yes.
Alex Jones would say COINTELPRO. Okay, this is the manipulation that we need to be savvy enough to be aware of.
Yeah, but yeah, in fact, you're 100% correct. It was on a pro-gun website, and I was very shocked. And I'm like, I can't believe he just would have went out and did this. So first thing I did was go to verify, is this really true or is this just a bunch of BS? And of course, it was BS, but I had to verify it first because I don't trust our current president as far as I can throw him.
All right. Well, I'm all about.
I know a lot of people don't verify things. They'll just say, okay, put it in my cart and click on buy now.
Well, here's the deal, Dano. You don't have to know nothing. You just have to suggest to other people that they do the research. Anyway, that's an inside joke from Instagram the other day. So I am not a big fan of just simply stating the facts or the situation, because we all kind of know the situation. I mean, to some extent, I guess it's a good idea to have multiple people, show or chime in with their perspective on this, the way that things are today and how they got here. But I'm more of the let's look forward and figure out how we can get ourselves out of this. So I thought, and I still think, that this M855 is a good battle. Right? We're free people, so we know that the road to freedom is eternal vigilance. Right? So we know, getting into this, that we're going to be fighting all the time, so that means we're going to be in battles, and you don't have just one big battle like in a movie. You have lots and lots of little battles. So this is a good one, and I think it's one that when we've talked to the attorney from Florida Carry, Eric, he gave us he was fairly optimistic, right? Or no, we were talking about shoulder braces. Did we talk about this one? But it seems like I get a pretty positive kind of feeling from the people I've talked to at the national level who are focused in on this kind of stuff, that in other words the M855 doesn't have a lot of legs to stand on, and the SIG brace doesn't have a lot to stand on. But obviously I'm not going to rest there. I'm glad to hear that there are people who do scrutinize this stuff and think that we have a good position, but I'm still about what can we all do to further that good position or ensure that the advantage to our side And that's kind of, again, one of the ideas was tonight. So maybe not necessarily the technical things that we can do, but just, again, I'd like to kind of get everybody's perspective or point of view on it. What can we learn as a gun community, and then ideally those of us who are motivated to do so, is there anything we can learn from, let's just use this time since the Sandy Hook, since it's very well documented and it's still relatively current, we can still find whatever details we might not have readily available to us. Is there anything that we can do by like scrutinizing this data? Is there any way that we can evaluate what we as gun owners do, what the antis do? Is there something that we can do as a group? And I mean we now, the 6 of us in here, the 36 people listening, the potentially hundreds or maybe thousands of people that might listen to this once it becomes a podcast and goes on through the next few months or whatever. And anybody who's of the ilk to hear me put out this challenge or put out this query, is there something that we can do? I mean, do we have to constantly just sit on the sidelines and watch and be spectators, or is there something that we can keep working on? Okay,
I'll toss one out here right now. That is taking the reins and being in charge. Right now we're distracted by so much of this crap with the ATF. If anybody's not familiar with it, get familiar with the Lance v. Holder case from Texas. This was an FFL in Texas, and I believe DC or Maryland citizens who filed a lawsuit, and it didn't even go to trial. The judge ruled from the bench, based on the evidence put in the thing, that right now you can go in one state, you can buy a rifle, you can transport that rifle across state lines. But if I want to buy a handgun, we all know the process that we have to go through. If we're buying a gun online or something like that, it's got to be an FFL to FFL transfer. Okay? From the bench, without trial, the judge ruled in the Texas Supreme Court that that is a violation of Second Amendment rights. The name of the case, again, is Lance v. Holder. Okay, that has completely dropped off because of this M855 thing. And I think one of the best things we could do, well, yeah, the M855 has to be dealt with, that we should, in some way, shape, or form, like we're working on now, bring this up, bring this out, and now pursue it. Okay, this is the ruling, but as far as I know today, this morning, I actually had to go to an FFL to pick up a frame. Okay, so we have a ruling. It's at the state level. Now I think it's time for us to be proactive and hammer this thing. Who's supporting it? Who knows about it? How can we help? If it's a GoFundMe, if it's a grassroots thing, if we put in labor, we have gun channels, we give them groups, websites, we set them up. But I think even for whatever margin of success that we have, that one of the most important things that we can do is not always wait for them to poke us with a stick. It's time for us to poke them back with stuff that they're not putting on the front burner. If they don't have it on the front page, it's for a reason. Not that they're not prepared for it, but we can most definitely upset their timing. And this is a perfect one for me to spearhead exactly what you're talking about.
I agree with you, and I think that in addition to what you said, we should put cooties on the end of that stick, so when we poke them, that they get the cooties.
Works for me.
Is that biological or chemical warfare, technically?
Psychological.
Sarin.
Like psyops. I like that. That's even better. Mess with them from the inside out. I like that.
Plus, it just warms my heart to see Eric Holder's name on a lawsuit personally. It's just, not that it means anything to him directly, but it's to me, that's like an awesome motivator.
Well, nothing made me more on the inside happy than when I had heard Eric Holder said that one of his biggest regret failure in office was failure to get a hold of gun control. And that told me a lot.
Because he uses the modified teacup grip.
I was going to say no, because he was tasked with it under his bosses, but the president, and he couldn't deliver because it's not going to happen. At least the level that they would be content with.
That when that psychological mindset had a hold of the executive branch, and for a period of time had both houses of Congress, still could not get that job done. That encourages me that we are winning sometimes by just keeping their hands off our rights.
Well, what about also Congress has tried to do a national, which I know some people are definitely not for, national reciprocation for concealed carry?
I'm down.
Well, that's some of the senators and congressmen and all that kind of trying to put stuff forward. We were kind of trying to talk about doing things proactively, but we definitely seem to be divided on whether it's a good thing or not.
Yeah, see, wow, we're still talking like in the big picture. Now I'm going to bring it back again down to the 6 of us. So is there something that can be done? We've talked about, and I'll throw some of the things I'm thinking, and you guys are good at helping me focus or, separate the good stuff from the bad stuff. But we've talked about listing all the existing national level and state level organizations that are pro-firearms. And that's going to be a fairly large task, but again, I think we can do that pretty easily with just making a page for each state, and saying we can put some subcategories into those groups and pretty easily list them all. I like that idea because they come and they go. And I like, personally, I've been doing web stuff for 10 years now, gun-related web stuff for 10 years. I really like, I think some of my personal things that I've done over the years that I personally am most satisfied with are the photographs I took of gun shops that don't exist anymore, and photographs of events that don't take place anymore. Just like for me at least, looking at old pictures of things that don't happen anymore. Those pictures, that's all there is. And things like gun shows and gun shops, not enough people are encouraged or interested or bothered to take pictures of these things. So, there was a couple of gun shops here in Tucson, at least, for example, that, I have photographs of because I've always been fascinated by gun shops, and that was something I like to do. So I took those pictures, and now there might be other pictures on the planet, but they're the only pictures online for sure. So I like the idea of documenting these groups as they exist now and over time, the ones that come and the ones that go, because I find some satisfaction and some encouragement seeing the amount of groups that have come and gone, not because they've gone, but because it shows us that throughout time people have had that drive to do something, and unfortunately they didn't have the resources or the participation to succeed, but that doesn't mean nothing. You can always gather that, and by archiving it, again, I think we're going to, that's a step towards, again, my concept of doing work that doesn't need to be repeated. So in addition to just literally listing and linking to make it easily accessible the various gun organizations, I guess the thing I'm asking for is other ideas, stuff like that we could do. I've put the challenge out there in past chats when we get into talking about things, as far as maybe taking a look at where the NFA came from. What was the stuff that started that? Who were the people involved with getting that started? I suspect there's probably some giant comedy of errors or some sort of weird, double crossing and weird stuff that happened back then that might be interesting enough for a book, perhaps even interesting enough for a movie. And by doing a movie, let's take a movie about the Titanic. I personally am not a boat guy, could care less about all the different boats. Of course, I've heard of the Titanic, but I certainly heard more about the Titanic when that movie came out a couple years ago because it was so popular or whatever. So I suspect that a whole bunch of people who are similar to me didn't care at all about boats and travel and the ocean back in the day. All of a sudden gave a damn about the Titanic for a minute, and it at least spurred off a bunch of other shows about, dive in to see what's down there and any other things. So, I'm thinking that if we can shine some light on the origins of the ATF or the origins of the 1934 National Firearms Act, the things that defines and restricts some firearms, the things that they used for the basis of the 1968 Gun Control Act. I suspect that one's fascinating. One of the members here on Gun Channels found two magazines, a News and a Newsweek and a Time, I think, or some weekly periodicals from back in 1968 that talk about the 1968 Gun Control Act, and he just posted them this evening. And honestly, I can't wait for this show to be over just because I want to go dig into those. That's just right up my alley. I really am interested in about not repeating history, finding out why we got these things. Let's say we go back and we find out it's all because people hated like Carrot Top, the comedian, and that's the reason we have the 1968 Gun Control Act. I know that's ridiculous, but if it turns out to be some crazy, extreme, ridiculous idea why we've got something, let's shed light on it and let's try to use that as another angle. But anyway, I guess I'm getting off. Let me jump back because I kind of got off topic, and I'm sorry I do that. But the idea is that what can we do that maybe is a little bit off the beaten, the already been done lines. What can we do as a group? And again, go into that idea of trying to archive all the state groups. That would be a monumental task for one individual or even a couple of individuals. But if we can put together some software on the internet and allow 50 or even 100 individuals, 2 people per state, to list them, now it's a task that can be done in an afternoon. And that's something that once people know where to reference it and they don't need to go accumulate all that data again, who knows what they're going to be able to take that and go towards.
Well, that's where we're headed with discussing the structure, is to be able to have where we figured is at most 2 people per state, once the initial setup is done, can basically admin the group on behalf of the entire state. And they could do any state that they wanted to. And so along those lines, since we are a .com and a website we're talking about here, personally I think that one of the most important things that we can do, and this is where the tech savvy and the business savvy come in, is where are our sources of information coming from? Are you clicking through links when these news aggregator sites? Are you clicking through links to get back to the source material? Check out and see. There's so many of these groups out there that are supposedly pro-gun groups, but they always present anti-gun spins on things. Some sort of thing or database whereby we go through these Facebook groups, we go through these various websites and actually find out who owns them, where are they getting their money from, do they have any ulterior motives or conflicts of interest here, and why is it, like the Dano pointed out earlier, you're supposed to be a pro-gun website, and yet you posted a fear-mongering, hoarding, completely false article to the pro-gun community. So I think along the lines with knowing where we came from and how we got to where we are, at the same time, that's a way we can truly establish where we are and who's like leading us around by the nose ring.
Right on. Hey, I'm going to take a second to say hey to Charles. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Awesome. So you're a little bit low on the mic, but...
That any better?
Oh, that's much better. Thanks.
Hopefully it won't do what it did last time and fall off.
Oh, no, it sounded great right now.
Yeah, I think I solved that problem.
So we were just, I was just asking the group, I've been working on the Gun Channel's website, and you know me, I get into these projects, so I'm trying to think of what we can do to, as I'm building it, some things to keep in mind. What can we do as individuals, not necessarily like the group of gun owners as a group, but just a few of us to help create some stuff that others can use. And I think an example I was using was taking a part of the website and listing all the different states and then all the pro-gun organizations in those states, and then having a bunch of people contribute to that so it's not a burden for one person. But then that way someone who comes along and thinks, oh, I want to do something, it just makes it a little bit easier to find what's available to them. What are we missing out there? I know we've had chats where people will ask you or the guys from Florida Carry or some of the other national level gun rights people, we'll ask, how do you guys get together? How do you guys figure out who's going to champion what injustice, or who's going to move the flag in our direction in this front? Is there something that you guys are lacking that you've always said, oh, if only we had this, that would make our lives easier? And I guess I should introduce you, or you want to introduce yourself? You're probably better at it than I am.
You mean me?
Oh yeah, sorry, you're the guest of the hour.
Yeah, this is Charles Heller. I'm the spokesman for the Arizona Citizens Defense League, and I'm the national spokesman for Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. One thing you could do, it's a small thing, but pick out, for each month, pick out an organization you want to support and put them in the tag on your email. That way people can just click on it and go right straight to the link of the or whatever organization you want to support that month.
Awesome. So like every individual out there, just as we're doing our emails, we'll put our little signature things we think are clever at the bottom of our emails.
Right.
You're suggesting try rotate out a new gun rights organization.
Yeah, every month change it over. One month could be SAF, another month could be AZCDL, another month could be JPFO. If you're in Ohio, Ohio Carry, or Florida Carry, or whatever organization happens to be, whoever you want to hype that month.
Now you've been doing the audio portion, recording the audio portion, and then making it available for anybody who's interested in it, of the Gun Rights Policy Conference for, I'm assuming, most of the time they've been doing. How long have they been doing the Gun Rights?
They're coming up on their 30th. I've been doing it for 11 years.
Okay, and I know that how much work you put into that, and basically you're just doing it as a service to let people hear what was, talked about if they weren't able to travel to the conference. So that makes me think, has that ever, I know it's probably a monumental task, but has that ever been fully archived? I know that you probably got everything on CD.
Actually, I have it in the hard drive of my computer, but yeah, I put it on the web for about 4 to 6 months after the conference. But mostly what I do is I erase it from my website to save space after I find it SAF. In fact, I just did that 2 weeks ago. I finally erased the 2014 conference from my website, but what I did was I put where it used to be, I put the URL to where the Second Amendment Foundation has it archived.
Oh, perfect. I was going to say, good. So it's not gone. It's just that they have it archived over there. You had the most recent ones available for people.
Right. And what I do is I edit them down to, I record them at not a super high resolution. For those geeks out there that want to know, I record them at 22,050 hertz and 56 kilobits per second is the bit rate. So it's not super high quality, but we're not listening to stereo music or anything like that. They're recorded in monaural. And also, when there's huge pauses in the beginning, I cut those out. I also, if there's any hum in the recording, I process that out. So you get a fairly decent, listenable piece of audio from the conference.
Does the Second Amendment Foundation have the funds or the ability to podcast all of those?
Sure. They have it. It's all archived on their website.
Oh, okay. So you can just go there and download it.
Yeah, you can just go there. If you look at my website, which is libertywatchradio.com, and I forget what button it's on, but one of them has I think it's the guns button. I'll look at it while we're talking here, and then what I did was on whatever page that my recordings used to be on, I simply put the URL where they are now on the Second Amendment Foundation's website. So, whoops, sorry. I'll turn that off.
Oh no, I can't even hear it. Your mic's working.
It was the beginning of my theme music on Liberty Watch. I assume that went over the air. I guess or over the Google connection. I guess it doesn't.
No, not too bad. Like say, we had probably understood something happened back there, but it wasn't very loud at all.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't turn it up.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of the last time you were on. Your mic's literally perfect this time.
Oh, well, I found out what it was. It was there were two connections close together, and one was shorting the other. That's all it was. But
now, just let me jump back to your, like, say, the radio part of this or the geek part of this. You're doing this from your house, right?
Yeah, I'm sitting at my house.
The board that you have, is that affordable that you're using?
The soundboard? Well, yeah, it's a Radio Shack SM1250. I can't imagine it's over $100.
Okay,
I have a second.
So we're gonna have to talk.
I have a second board. Pardon?
I was going to say, that's my price range. We're going to have to talk because I'm trying to take this to the next level, and that probably means putting some songs and stuff at the beginning.
I have a spare soundboard if you want to borrow one for a while. It's much more high-tech than this one and could give you a little bit more flexibility till you get another one. Another thing you could do is you could go on my swap shop program and see if there's one out there you can afford or
Right on.
trade something for.
That's a great idea. Thanks. Yeah, I got some guns I'm trying to get rid of, so I need to do swap shop one of these days.
Yeah, things sell pretty fast. I sold an M1A this week. So
You sold your Tanker Grand?
no,
Oh.
no, that goes in my will. I'm not.
Me, right?
That's-
Okay, so we're on.
That I'm not getting rid of. But I also have the most unusual model 88 Winchester lever action 308 that is made into a scout rifle. The stock has been rubberized. The rifle has been Parkerized, and there's a 30 caliber birdcage flash hider on it. It's the funniest looking lever action rifle you ever saw. But it's cool. It's got a scout scope on it. 2X Leopold forward mounted. Boy, does that thing come up fast.
All right, we won't say that's what she said because we're trying to be classy.
Yeah.
All right,
I know
but
one thing. I set it on the bench at the Tucson Rifle Club one time, and I had a shoot and see target, and I loaded it with around 158 ball, put 4 in the magazine. That's how many that takes, 4 in the mag. Chambered around, took a nice set, got my feet right, my breathing right, my sight picture right, and I put the first round right through the center of the X. I immediately took the magazine out, opened the action, ran a bore snake through it, and put the rifle away. And I haven't shot it since because I figured I wouldn't do any better than that. That's been about 5 years. No,
Well,
probably
that-
6.
that's pretty good training because you left at the height of your skill. So good
Right.
job.
Well, there you go. Actually, I did shoot it once with you when you were shooting an AK, and I had that rifle with me. I shot it once since then, and I haven't
How
touched.
can you ever?
Up on
You'll
the
never
head.
be able to re-experience the joy of that perfect shot.
Sure, I can. All I have to do is close my eyes.
Well,
You ever listen to the Everly Brothers? Dream, 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 dream. I can experience that anytime I want. I have a vivid imagination.
All right,
I
so
don't have to go to the range.
since we
but
got
if that
some,
was true, we'd only have a girlfriend once.
Anyone knows the joys of a woman? Why would he want to know? Why would he want her again? No thanks.
all right. Well, on that
Mine
note,
gave me the gift.
Let's try
Mine
it back
gave
to
me the
M55.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Just
Just because we don't want to go too far off, so we're going to stick.
Okay.
Let's talk about the M855. You had 2 good guests on this weekend. We all listened to it, and eventually Charles and I will get together, and it's my fault because I don't send him the links fast enough. But I think with the new version of what we're doing here, he'll have a permanent link, and Charles will be able to get onto the show and see the comments or whatever. But this weekend we did play the show, and half the guys in here probably listening. But was it Alan that Alan Gottlieb from the Second Amendment Foundation was on, and then there was another.
That
guy.
was last week. That was a week ago. That was a week ago yesterday. That Gottlieb was on.
Oh, okay. So yesterday was.
Yesterday
You guys were
was.
talking about M855 yesterday, I thought too.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, but the M855, I don't think the particular ammo, I don't think is terribly significant. I think what's important is that ATF is abusing its authority to declare something armor piercing, which A isn't, and B they have no authority to regulate anyway. So that's the problem with it, with the M855 ammo, the green tip, 62 grain green tip. But as far as that goes, I don't think that was done to ban any one particular type of ammo so much as it was done to do exactly what community organizers do, which is keep people stirred up and nervous and worried and off balance. And what it's done is it's caused a panic buy, and the prices are on all 223 ammos up about 25%. So
do you think that that's intentional then?
yeah, of course, that's exactly what it was done for. I don't think they think that they're going to ban 223 ammo. I really don't think they think that at all. I don't. I think they know they couldn't get away with it because it's the most popular rifle in the United States, and so many people have ammo for it. And there's so many, people even on the left that own those rifles. I think they know they can't get away with banning all 223. But like the left has been doing forever in this country since the time of our founding is they chisel away a little bit here and a little bit there, just chip, and try and knock loose significant blocks. And eventually, when the time is right, when some bad event happens that augurs against us, they say, well, we have this precedent of banning this type of ammo, so now based on that precedent, we'll ban this type of ammo, whatever it happens to be, whatever the flavor of the month is. But I don't think it has. I don't think they think they're going to get rid of 223. I really don't.
Charles, I have a question for you. This is Dano. Do you feel that if they are successful with the 855, that the bigger danger, which is something I believe you think, is the precedent that it would lay for other ammunition that will also go through armor already? An example would be some of the Liberty ammo with the solid copper projectile at 2,000 feet per second.
Yeah, they may establish a velocity test, or they may have some kind of standardized test that they'll have DOJ perform in a very sterile environment, and they'll do this very serious test where, you know, you take standard level 3A armor that a cop might wear, and and poke a hole through both sides of it with whatever piece of 30 caliber ammo you want, and say, oh, nope, that'll fail the test. And you know what? 98 out of 100 Americans won't know the difference. Well, maybe 94 out of 100 Americans won't know the difference. They won't understand it, and even if you tell them, they don't have a frame of reference. Because I mean, look at it. Even a lot of people who own a gun don't kind of get ballistics and don't understand, especially terminal ballistics. Maybe they know how many feet per second the particular round they shoot goes, but they've got no registration for how many feet per second it takes to get through both sides of a piece of body armor. So if you tell them something, if you tell them sincerely enough and breathlessly enough, even they're likely to believe it. Look how many people voted for that idiotic thing in Washington with background check.
But I guess my concern is that if that's considered a valid reason to ban 855, then it's just like the California Condor, which is also part of their justification. Right. If that's considered a legitimate reason to ban it, well, then that applies to a whole lot of other ammo too. Right,
exactly. So the trick is, this is called Niggy Sob. Now I got you, you son of a bitch. Otherwise known as drag them in and kick them. It's a psychological technique. It's called Niggy Sob. If you read, there's an interesting book on it called The Myth of the Innocent. Suffering is Optional. The Myth of the Innocent Bystander. And I read it when I was in college. My mom gave it to me. Anyway, what it does is it sets up a paradigm, a circumstance, gets everybody used to that paradigm, and then immediately yanks the paradigm out from under people. It's a way of keeping them off balance. And it's a way of making sure you always get what you want, because you always move the goalpost. You get the goalpost firmly established, everyone used to it, and then you move it because it upsets everybody. It upsets the apple cart, and if there's no rules, nobody ever knows what the game is or how the game is played. Only the person changing the rules is the only one that's going to win.
So that was a good point. Thanks. Is this a calculated chess game? I mean, I know it's always a chess game, but is this gambit or whatever, this element of it, designed so that they can, again, I think what Dano was saying is, if they say that because of they say in the notice, because the Congress really meant officer safety, like the Congress really cares about officer safety, so the way we understand that there's these two conflicting things here, but we really know, or what we think, well, we know Congress really wants is officer safety. So because of that, we're going to erase this line that says except for M855, which is what they're doing. They're erasing the exception for it. Now it can be considered armor piercing like it should be.
Well, it's really not that it's armor piercing; it's that there are pistols that'll take it.
I'm saying it's a 1-2 punch. If it's armor piercing and a pistol can have it. So what they're saying is, because we're changing the rules and saying that it is armor piercing, well, now a pistol can have it, so you can't have the ammo.
Exactly.
So but is that whole little gambit there part of a bigger one? Because then they can say, well, like you just said, setting precedent, so then they can say in a couple of years or a couple of weeks or a couple of days, because who knows how fast they're going to jump on this.
Right.
They're going to say, well, we really wanted to help officers here, and even in the explanation, while the gun grabbers or the gun clingers were desperately holding on to their murder weapons, they were even telling us about how this bullet can get through armor, and this bullet can get through armor, and this bullet can get through armor. So surely, because we all know that really what we want is officer safety, why don't we get rid of all these examples of bullets that can go through soft armor?
Or put a power factor limiting in there, or a velocity limit, or whatever it might happen to be.
Exactly, just some arbitrary number, and then they'll go, oh, well, this arbitrary number was arbitrary. Why don't we pick a more standard number, like the 22?
No, I don't think they'll do it that way. I think they do it through research. They have a phony research that establishes a pre-established conclusion that everyone will believe because some credible agency does it. And in other words, the evil is the way the standard is written. And usually, they'll take some precipitating event, like maybe a massacre, maybe some unfortunate police officer gets shot through their armor. That's very rare. Almost never does a cop's armor get penetrated. They'll wait till the first one that does, with some crazy that ends up using, an M1A or an M1A or maybe even a Garand or something like that 30-06 is going to whistle through both sides of the armor, and they say, well, somebody makes a pistol in 30-06, so that's got to. In fact, I think 30-06 armor piercing has already been banned a long time ago. So I'm almost positive of it.
Well, exactly, with the 7.62 by 39, if I remember right, in like '94 or something. But then again, they had that exception for the military version, along with the M855.
Right. Well, the M855 really isn't armor piercing. The thing is, I think what this is a reaction to is this is a piss backwards from the arm brace controversy. I think what ATF is doing is saying, okay, you're going to screw with us on the arm brace, we'll screw with you on the ammo for your arm brace gun. I think that's why they particularly picked this out. I'm just guessing. I don't have any solid info that says that, but that's what my spidey sense tells me that.
I'm sure that it didn't. It's not hurting their decision. But I thought when you guys brought up maybe it was 2 weekends ago when you were talking about on your show that since this is Holder's like farewell thing, like this
Swan
is their
song.
salute to him or whatever.
And G, back to what he was saying, Charles was saying before. One of the problems is they don't even have to change the rules because we don't, as a voice, make them adhere to the rules that they established in the first place. By their own rules and by their own definitions, M855 is not armor piercing. And yet somehow along the way, we just let them say it was. Okay, so we
did that in '94 or whenever it was when they came up with that thing with the 1-2 of the number 1 of the 1-2 punch, because it's in that definition. It gives you okay, they have to define something. I'll give them that. If they're going to do something, they have to draw a line in the sand. So their line in the sand was that whole 25% makeup of this material and so, and the whole percentage is there. But because M855 with a mild steel tip would fall into that definition, they made that exception for M855. I don't know. I haven't done a lot of research on this, but I think, if I can recall correctly, from about a year or two ago when I did do a little bit of research on this, I got the impression that the reason they left that exception for M855 so many years ago when they banned the importation of all the other things that they were going to interpret as a steel core was so that we could have an offshore supply of M855 since it was a fire of the ammo for our most common firearm in the country, and we wanted to have an offshore supply of that from an ally, the Philippines.
By my interpretation, and other people agree, and based on the actual numbers of the M855 round, it doesn't meet their own definition of armor piercing. But even still, whether it does or it doesn't, by allowing that to happen, we then quote unquote validated the sporting use thing. Now, the Second Amendment doesn't say anything about sporting use, and we've talked about this before. What we use is justification. Okay, it's not about, oh, we'll just let you have it because it's sporting use, and I don't want to get it back because it's sporting use, because sporting use is again one of their arbitrary definitions and arbitrary rules that we let them put in place. So I think like part of the strategy and the pushback should be like the Second Amendment says I have the right to keep and bear arms, not just to hunt, not just for sporting use, not just for what you feel like. And when they can't get away with something legally, like the way the A55 thing is blowing up, when it gets too big for them, there always seems to be some little thing where there's a compromise where we lose a little bit and they appear to make themselves be tossing us a bone. And then they turn around later and use that against us.
I have a question. It's kind of a different tack, but it's something that we've sort of indirectly talked about in the past about how we've had discussions about the militarization of the police force and things like that. Is there any way that this is a stepping stone, so to speak, for that if it doesn't pass, the ban, what have you, that then they're going to turn around and say, well, then we need to make sure that all of the police force has level 3 or level 4 body armor?
There is a heck of a lot of armor probably coming back from overseas, right?
I noticed we hadn't really brought that part into the discussion. Is there any way that that they know that they can't pass that, so that then what they're going to say is, well, then we need to upgrade all of the police department's armor? Or is that just so not going to happen?
Well, the economics is always a factor. Once again, whether or not it's a part of some sort of plan or whether it's a byproduct of some sort of plan, what is it Rahm Emanuel said, let no good crisis go to waste. One of the arguments here in Texas about the campus carry law is the colleges are arguing how much money they're going to have to spend to accommodate the fact that people are going to carry on campus. And rightfully so, somebody in testimony said, well, I have a question. If you're going to spend this money for campus carry, if it passes, why aren't you spending this money now to upgrade all your campus police departments?
Did they have a response?
Right now, it's like out there in public that they're bantering back and forth. Whether or not the person who's representing I forget which school it is, but it's the person who's spearheading the responses on behalf of the colleges is the president or the dean of a big cancer teaching college, I believe in Dallas, and his written, because this was written testimony, or his written opinion rather, it wasn't testimony, was him giving numbers, upwards of like $30 million plus to be able to build gun storage lockers, to be able to upgrade and up armor campus police. And so one of the written replies was, well, if you plan on spending, you say it's going to cost $30-something million to upgrade campus police, then why aren't you spending this money to upgrade campus police just because it's a safety issue? If there is some sort of reply in that, it's probably at this point going to be in writing.
I think you're expecting people to be rational who aren't rational.
That's something I think we end up not appreciating, that we think a different way than others. Everyone's like, we had somebody in the chat the other day that every once in a while it'll come up or we have to refocus on it, but we've had people come in and tell us, in a live chat like this, that if someone's going to get mugged, they would rather that mugging happen and the person run off with the money than for the victim to take a life of the mugger, because the robbery was not as valid a crime, or is not as bad a crime as the murder would have been. So you'd have been doing more harm in the world than.
But it's not a murder, though.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying that's how they.
homicide,
But that's
not
how
a
their mindset sees
Right.
it. They see it
Right.
as like a net removal of a human being from the planet, not a necessary tidying up of the gene pool.
Well,
Right, and-
we have the police chief of Austin, Texas, Joe Acevedo, who oddly enough looks like Edge, talks like him too. His testimony was that the survivor counseling mechanisms are already well established, and he's against campus carry because it could turn a survivable, counselable assault into an unsurvivable, deathly confrontation. That was his testimony, paraphrase.
That dude doesn't look anything like me. And second of all, he's the one who also said he wanted people to report their neighbors that are suspicious. If you're suspicious of your neighbors and you have a problem with your neighbors, something like that,
Of course, Edge is going to be against that.
about their guns or whatever, you let us know. Give us a heads up. Like, what the fuck are you doing, But Austin's just crazy now, man.
Yeah, and again, like I'm very well aware of the fact and the psychology behind trying to argue somebody who's making an irrational emotional behavior based upon sensationalized information. When you try to counter that with a factual counter, it drives them deeper into their delusions and their emotions, and they become more irrational.
Right. The reason for that is that they have no context for what you say, and so the natural result, the natural tendency in that person is to retreat into what's safe for them, not into what they don't know.
Exactly.
The only way you can deal with an emotional person like that is through emotion. You cannot reason with them, and trying to fits Einstein's definition of insanity.
Yeah. And sadly, and the reason why I say sadly is this: at the times that there are these hard shootings in the public eye, when they are sensationalized, there is always a small group of people who were anti beforehand, but the particular instance or the details actually changed their opinion because they actually had a visceral emotional response for self-protection, whereas before they had a visceral emotional response to, a victimization or a martyrdom type of thing. So there's been a couple of instances around these public shootings whereby people that were vehemently anti-gun have suddenly flipped over and become visible. And again, I think it's our failure that some of these people have dropped out of the public eye, because I think they're one of our best ambassadors.
One of those people is Paxton Quigley. She was anti-gun. She was she had a stake in getting the 1968 Gun Control Act passed when she was just past her teen years, and she's become a very strong advocate for the right to keep and bear arms, and one of the leading female fire instructors in the United States.
I didn't know she was involved with the 1968.
Yep, she
That's
was.
super interesting.
She helped get 68. She helped advocate for 68 GCA. She's, by the way, now moved to New York City as a firearms instructor, and of course can't get a permit.
Yeah. And the other one that springs to mind for me, and I forget her name, is the one from the Luby shooting, who actually
it's, Susanna Gratia Hupp.
Yes, and she actually did enter politics, and I sort of lost track of her.
She's still in Texas. I've interviewed her for my program, and if you guys want to, I'll put that interview.
I've got it as a podcast on. So if you go to iTunes and type in Liberty Watch Radio, you'll get Charles's whole bunch of them, and he generously allows people to do rebroadcast them like that, and I've done so. So they're on iTunes and on Stitcher Radio. Just type in her name, and you'll get it.
Cool, because I definitely would like to check that out.
Now, I do want to try to pay a little bit of a moderator and swing it back towards 855, but first I'm going to selfishly interject something off topic because Charles brought it up, and we were talking about it just before this, and it's something that's been kind of a bug in my bonnet lately, Charles. I don't know if I brought it up with you or not, but the concept of trying to let me first preface it with this. Have you seen who's the guy that does the documentaries that are so good?
Are you talking about Guy Smith?
No, does them on PBS. He did the Civil War one that was really cool.
Ken something.
Ken Burns. Ken Burns.
Ken
So there's
Burns.
a Ken Burns documentary on the Prohibition. It's a 3-parter. It's on Netflix.
Mhm.
Have you seen that one?
No.
I really like it. It's 3 parts of Prohibition, leading up to it, Prohibition itself, and then the aftermath. And one of the things I found most fascinating of that perspective on it, because I've never really, I just never saw it from his angle, was the fact that we didn't have such a thing as organized crime, at least in this country, until Prohibition, and then the artificial political stimulus of, the profit.
That's not really the case. We had organized crime. It just wasn't so virulent. Because the organizations, the backbone of the organizations that became the Capone gang and the Moran gang and all the other gangs and the Gambino crime family and all that in New York, those were all there, but they were much smaller enterprises.
I'm summarizing it poorly, but
Right.
that's the concept: is that it took these informal groups or families and gave them such profits and such reason to start organizing.
It made them strong.
Right, and basically what I'm getting at is that by his, I'm going to call it mainstream look at a situation like that, it brought light to something that I thought was fairly interesting, because there's a lot of parallels to that in the drug war and blah blah blah. So what I'm trying to ask is, do you think that if somebody like that, somebody like a documentary person, or somebody who can maybe do a movie made for prime time that would either have some famous stars in it or some reason for the general public to want to have interest in it, but it focuses on maybe the creation of the NFA, or the creation of the ATF, or the history of the ATF maybe, or the creation of the 68. Do you think that something like that would be a step towards bringing it into the culture again? Because I like Emil Frenzy, how he always says, America was better when we had cowboys instead of lawyers. I like to say we don't need to change the way the world is. We just need to get back to where having a lever action wasn't an issue. It was just something that some people had, just like they had a shovel in their car. And people were more casual about firearms. This perceived violence and danger has all happened in my lifetime. I suspect, though, not in your lifetimes. So I guess the whole question I'm taking a long time to get up to is, have you ever seen anybody who focuses on life before and then after the 68 Gun Control Act, which is in your lifetime?
Well, I know that JPFO has got several movies about the BATFE. One of them's called The Gang. And it doesn't so much cover the formation of BATFE as some of the terrible, terrible malfeasance they've committed. And I don't know of anybody that's made a history documentary about it. ATF came from after Prohibition was repealed, they had an agency with no mission. That's where ATF came from. That's what alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, the revenue people, the Elliot Nesses of the government, turned into ATF. That's what they became. I'm sorry, what?
I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
They became the BATFE. Well, they became the ATF in 1972. That's when they were chartered as a federal law enforcement agency, and the progenitor of that organization was the revenue agents that you saw in the Untouchables. That was the progenitor of ATF.
I was just going to say, when I did a sort of one of my video things for YouTube back in the day, I was trying to do some research of the history of the ATF for some things, and it's not hard to find. At least at the time, they were very proud of it. They go back to the Boxer Rebellion, so they're literally one of the first enforcement and regulation entities of the executive branch, and they've changed names and roles, but unfortunately it seems like they've accumulated roles and responsibilities throughout this time, so they're a massive organization. So I'm thinking of something like the CIA. For a while there, it was kind of cool to make movies about how corrupt the CIA was, or how they don't answer to anybody, and then all of a sudden the CIA kind of cleaned up, because there was hey, we got to worry about this public perception. I mean, I don't think the ATF is innocent of much. So if we shine the light on them and make them look like the big, the jackboot thugs of government, give them some scrutiny, and I think we've had some precedent for this after Ruby Ridge and after Waco, right? Mm-hmm. People kind of had some backlash.
We had there were 3 movies: Waco, The Rules of Engagement, Waco, something else, and then the Waco Final Chapter. There were 3 movies made by what's his name? Somford. His email is Somford. trying to think of his name. I just had a chat with him on email, but oh well, I'll Google it real quick and tell you. But in essence, yeah, after Ruby Ridge and Waco, there were 3 documentary movies made, or at least 3 that this guy made, and were very, very good and revealing.
Thanks for the lead, and I'm going to hopefully put that kernel in your head. If something comes to you, please let me know, because I think that, like a lot of things, the history is going to be lost. And one of the things I'm curious about is talking to gun shop owners who had to, who were able to experience life as gun shop owner before and then after the regulations of '68. And I think that's the kind of thing that we can talk to people firsthand still. Thinking of, like, Butch's dad. Would be great to talk to somebody like that who he had his hands in importing for a bit, manufacturing and sales. So, talk to these guys firsthand and record some of this stuff, so that they say we're not doomed to repeat history, right?
Dan Gifford is the guy's name.
Thanks.
Okay,
Charles,
so like I
have
say,
a quick question.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I have a quick question for you. What has the ATF's history been in regards to ever asking for public comment?
Oh, every time they've made a rule, there's federal regulations that say how when you make a rule that you add to the CFR, the Code of Federal Regulations, pursuant to federal law, there's a statutory comment period somewhere between 90 and 120 days, depending on the issue, and they're required to publish all the comments, and there's a number of rules of things they're required to do in order to establish a new rule.
Well, the reason I ask this question is they didn't do that with the SIG brace.
Right, and there's a reason they didn't do that, because it wasn't a new policy, it was an interpretation of an existing policy, a reinterpretation of an existing policy. So they weren't required to do that. That's what they're claiming.
Is this one of those logic thing, or am I just not getting it?
What? Say that again?
How does reinterpretation not create new policy?
Well, because there's not a new policy. There's not a new... They don't say, well, here's this new policy we're going to do. It's, here's the old policy and the circumstances have changed, so we're adapting the policy to the circumstance, and therefore they claim they don't have to have public comment. If you had to have public comment every time you changed a rule, then it would tie the government in knots, which you and I would think is a good thing, but other people wouldn't, and it would make an inefficient government kind of ineffective. And so that's the reason you don't do it. It's kind of like why, this is very analogous to when a police officer stops you. If the police officer deliberately lies to you in order to get you to say something that would be against your interest, do you know what the courts call that?
No, I don't.
Valid technique. Because the police officer doesn't intend to commit a crime. He intends to solve a crime. Therefore, because his clientele tend not to be truthful with him, he would be at a competitive disadvantage if he had to tell the truth, so he's allowed to lie. Well, the government, if they wanted to, in trying to run things efficiently, if every time they changed anything they had to have a public comment on it, it would tie the government in knots. And that would be their argument of why they don't have to, if they're simply changing, if circumstances change and they're not making a new rule, then they don't have to do a public comment period.
I guess I see a parallel between the ammo and the SIG brace in this regards. They were both legal,
Mm-hmm.
and then the brace, now it's illegal to use it in that way. And now they're looking to do the same thing with the ammunition. It was legal, and now they're looking to make it illegal.
Well, they want to make it illegal to buy, not to own. Of course, what good is owning it if you can't shoot it? So, how many angels dance on the head of a pin? Still, it's legal to own the SIG brace and shoot it as a brace. It just isn't legal to put that up to your jacket or to your to your shoulder and use it as a rifle. They're saying it turns it into an SBR. I say pull the rug out from under him, register the sucker as an SBR, and then use it that way all you want. Now they try and bust you for it, and you go after them for malfeasance. Oh no, I specifically complied with the law. Here's my tax stamp. I can do anything I want with it. And they'll scream, no, you can't, and now you go after their commission to be a police officer for exceeding their authority under the color of law.
Yeah, it's just one of the few braces that you can't brace.
Well, you can brace it on your arm. You can't brace it against your chest. You know.
But 2 weeks ago.
What?
Never mind.
Yeah, I don't think Charles is trying to defend it, but I think the difference is that there was an existing piece of paper, and they said we're going to, for the SIG brace at least, there was this existing piece of paper, and they basically just said we're going to reevaluate how we enforce what's written on this piece of paper. And at least in my mind, the difference with this new one, with the M855, is because they're literally going to go in and erase that exemption, that sentence that says except for M855. They're going to erase that from the law. So since that's a different thing with a similar result, I think that's why they have to.
What they're basing it on is the existence of more and more pistols in 223. That's what they're basing it on. If there were no pistols, for instance, something like the Thompson Center, Thompson Contender, which is a pistol that you can get in 223, and it's been around on the market for at least 25 years. Because there wasn't a significant amount of them, and because that gun is not really associated with anything except target shooting and maybe possibly hunting, they said it had no significant effect on the fact that there was so-called armor-piercing ammo available in a pistol, because, hell, nobody's got one. And if they did, they wouldn't use it in a crime. Whereas supposedly if somebody has an AR-15 pistol, it's much more, quote, usable, unquote, in a criminal way. So that's their rationale. I don't agree with their rationale, and besides which it's not armor-piercing, and besides which I don't think they have the authority to regulate it anyway. But if enough people, how many people are going to challenge a guy with a gun and a badge who says we're going to do it this way? There's really only one lawful way to do it, and that's to try and find to do what Alan Gottlieb did at Second Amendment, find some perfect victim, frame the case wonderfully, and then go after the government. Because if you wait to fight them until they're prosecuting you, that's a losing battle.
What I would like to know is when we are going to see the executive order removing the phrase "the color of law" from the curriculum, simply because this administration fulfilled their promise of giving us the most transparent government ever. The color of law is now clear.
Well, no, I think the reason they would remove color of law is because it would imply prejudice.
There's a good lawsuit for Holder.
Yeah, it would imply racial prejudice by bringing up color.
I have a question, Charles. Has there ever been an engagement or a standoff with ATF that's not resulted or has resulted in a good positive light for them?
Positive light for ATF?
Yeah, and
you mean like a Waco or
that kind of situation?
Well,
where they were just. It was obviously something that was just, or because there's always been a lot of controversy with those standoffs and end result.
Well, not with ATF, but if you want an example of one that didn't go the way they planned, it was when Marshal William F. Deegan shot Sammy Weaver at Ruby Ridge as he was running away. He'd thrown down his gun and was running away, and Marshal Deegan fired a burst of full auto and killed him while he was running away, shot him in the back. And Randy Weaver's buddy, whose name doesn't occur to me at the moment, from a position, took a braced position and centered Deegan in his sights and pulled the trigger, killing Deegan rather instantly. And they put him on trial for murder after the thing went down, and the jury acquitted him. So he was responding to an open and notorious murder. What he did was correct, and they found him not guilty of murder of a federal agent in the line of duty doing his job. They said, "Oh no, that was defense of a third person, and it's absolutely legitimate." And he wasn't convicted. So
while you're not saying the ATF was
that was the U.S.
there, but the system worked.
Well, in that case, the system finally worked
not the whole system, but yeah.
But no, the judicial system worked fine in that case because
I guess the system that sent those guys out in the first place probably.
Right. No, that was ridiculous. The whole idea of what they got Randy Weaver on originally was made up. It was a circumstance similar to what I talked about, law enforcement lying to him and getting away with it.
Worked fine after it ruined the guy's life. The guy that was on trial.
I'm sorry, say again.
I said worked fine after the guy's life was ruined by putting him on trial.
No, I don't know that his friend's life was ruined by it. Randy Weaver's was by having his wife murdered, and and having him drugged through the media as some kind of a loon or a racist, and he may very well have been a racist. I don't know, but it's not illegal to be a racist, and it's illegal to do violent acts based on racism, but it's not illegal to be a racist. Anyway, Weaver's reputation, Weaver has been below the radar ever since this happened. The only time he surfaced was he wrote a book. I think he co-wrote a book with Sheriff Mack, if I'm correct. Maybe not, but anyway, I know Sheriff Mack is a friend of Randy Weaver, but he's been below the radar for a long time. He hasn't, come up.
I'm actually referring to even just the cost to defend yourself, even if the Justin works, at the end, the cost to defend yourself has such a massive impact. That's what I mean by ruining your life.
Yeah.
Just on the financial level.
Today we have alternatives for that, among them being the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network and the Second Call Defense Network, and also the one out of Wisconsin, which escapes me, the concealed carry Tim Schmidt's group.
USCCA.
USCCA, right. So, if you can get insurance against that and so that it won't ruin you, and frankly, I would have multiple, if it were me, I would have multiple layers of policies on it. Plus, there's also now some insurance companies that are underwriting insurance with, for instance, in certain circumstances, like people who have a CCW permit, restricting it only to people with a CCW permit, knowing their risk is fairly low because, we're pretty law-abiding people.
Charles, I know I told you it would be an hour, and I don't know where we're at, but if I
don't know.
We just had an anniversary on the 28th of February of the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, I guess is what it was called, went into effect in 1994. And I think that we've got a personal, kind of relationship or whatever, to that because of Sheriff Mack, and you could probably tell the story a lot better than I can. But since this is just the other day, I think since this, again, Every Second Matters is all about having conversations about firearms, and this is something that an interesting story. And when I try to do things on the social medias and whatnot, and let people know about these anniversary dates and things like this, so that we don't forget, right? And the thing about the Brady Bill that gets me, and I was alive during it, but unfortunately I wasn't paying enough attention because I don't remember completely. But I got the impression that the Brady Bill went into the effect, we know why, but it went into the effect of creating this waiting period, which rubbed me the wrong way in so many ways. And then Sheriff Mack stood up and stopped that, and in effect shut it down. But if you read anything on the internet, it says that the Brady Bill was the creation of NICS, and they don't mention Sheriff Mack at all. And I got the impression that the Brady Bill happened, Sheriff Mack stood up and smacked it down, and then they came up with NICS as a, okay, well, and we'll do this then. So can you illuminate all that better for us?
Not that well. It's been so long, but what the idea was, originally the Brady Bill only applied to long guns, and then only applied to handguns. Then they expanded it some years later. I think it was 7 years after it went in, and they expanded it to all guns. But the Brady check used to be only for handguns, and there wasn't a national center at the time. So that's why there was a mandate on the states to do it. The NICS system was developed several years after the Brady Bill came to be, and then states had the ability to either opt in or opt out of using either NICS or their own state system. Arizona used its own state system for a number of years, and then it went over to the NICS system when they realized they didn't have to spend the money on it. They could make the federal government do that for them. As far as the history of how what happened was in 97, Mack challenged, or the case went to the Supreme Court in 97, and Mack said that the federal government had no authority under the 10th Amendment to force him to do a background check. See, what they'd done is they'd said, because Mack had refused, they said, if you don't do this, we're going to arrest you if you don't follow the law. And so that was why he had standing in the case, was because he had been threatened officially by BATFE that if he didn't do the background check that he would be arrested. That's what gave him standing to sue, and the Supreme Court agreed with Sheriff Mack that the government had no authority whatsoever to order a county sheriff to do a background check, and that's why he won. It was a 10th Amendment case, not a Second Amendment case.
But I like the whole idea that just the one guy, the one sheriff said, nope, you
Well, it
can't
wasn't
make a federal dictate that puts
right.
the burden on every single local law enforcement officer.
It wasn't just one. There were 5 sheriffs altogether. The other one was um, uh, Prince in
Right.
I think in Montana, and then there was one in Texas, and there were 2 others, and I don't remember. One was in Missouri, and I don't remember all the sheriffs, but there were 5 sheriffs in that case. It was called Prince and Mack v. U.S.
But still, I mean, relatively few individuals as opposed to like the law enforcement union or some entity that represented a bunch of people, which kind of removes it from individuals being able to affect change.
Right, yeah, they had to have standing. You know, the case called Heller in the Supreme Court in 2008 was originally called Parker, but Shirley Parker lost her standing. The reason was she never applied for a permit to have a gun in her home. The only one of the 5 plaintiffs in that case who did was Dick Heller, and it was because his original lawyer, Dane von Breckenruckert, common spelling, Dane von Breckenruckert told him to do that. Otherwise, you're going to lose your case on standing. And everyone but Heller did lose the case on standing. Had he not done that, there'd have been no case. And had Heller not happened, McDonald wouldn't have followed and incorporated the Second Amendment on the states, and we'd still be sitting with our thumbs in an impolite place like we were for 50 years between Miller and Heller.
Wow.
If you want some interesting background, there's some for you.
Yeah, 2 very pivotal points.
Uh-huh.
Well, hopefully this is going to spark further research from people, whether that be listening to Charles if you're finding him interesting, like say his podcasts or his audio recordings are available on his website, which is libertywatchradio.com, correct?
Yeah, and I've interviewed Dick Heller, although it's been a long time ago. I had him on. I said I think it would be funny if we spent the whole interview calling each other Mr. Heller. We did about the first half of that. It was kind of fun, but it got old. And I never interviewed Otis. I'm sorry, what?
Oh, no, go ahead.
I never interviewed Otis McDonald, and he passed away last year. But I did know him and meet him, and what a cool guy he was, and Otis McDonald. And then see if I had any others. I've met some of the people in the Illinois case, the Seventh Circuit Court case that got Illinois discreet carry. And by the way, I think we should start calling it discreet carry, not constitutional carry, not concealed carry. We should be calling it discreet carry because discreet implies discretion, concealment implies guilt. I think we should call it.
There's some connotation to it.
Right. I think we should, because he who frames the argument usually wins the debate. So we want to start framing the argument our way.
Now, I always try to describe to people your quick bio. How long have you been doing your show?
16 years.
So, and you've got, I can't even imagine how many interviews in that amount of time since you've been, I don't think you've ever missed a week in that time.
Well, I've missed 4. I've been away, but there's been 4 weeks that in 16 years there hasn't been a show. But other than that, there's whatever it is. Actually, the Liberty Watch and Armed and Free have actually been on for 14 years. Swap Shop 16, but the 14 years, that's 52 times 2. That's 104 shows a week. Times, let's see, 10 years would be 1,400. And add 4 more years to that, 1,400. I don't know. 4 years, 104. That's 400. About 1,800 shows, right?
Not bad. And you've got the most recent ones, kind of the last few weeks there on the listen page, and then you've got the archive page where you've got some of the coolest ones.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Actually, the archive page has changed its name. It now says Recent Shows.
Okay.
Or excuse me, that's not true. The Listen page has changed its name. I put Recent Shows because Listen just didn't get enough people. They didn't realize, well, this is Listen to the Show. They didn't realize
they didn't realize you had.
Yeah, so I changed it to Recent Shows, and I didn't realize I had to put an underscore in between it and after it in order to make the link live. So I probably shouldn't have changed it, but I did, so I'm not going to unchange it.
So if you are interested in, or you're liking what Charles is bringing to the table, then you can listen to Countless Hours there, and like I say, we've rebroadcasted some of it over on iTunes as well.
One of the things, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
one of the things I've been thinking about doing is there's something called Internet Archive.
Okay.
And I've been thinking of putting all the shows up there. And what I ought to do is burn a DVD and
Well, we got this thing called Gun Channels, and we can work something out, I'm sure. So
put them all. Can you put them all on there?
Try. Sounds like a challenge. I'm willing to try it.
I'm willing to give you the archive. I mean, I have no problem giving that to you. I'll burn it to a DVD. I haven't ever figured out how to install DVD burning software in my Windows 7 machine. I really detest Windows 7. I badly miss XP. So, oh well.
Well, let's bring it back to the M55. Dano had a good point. It's kind of gone up in the side scroll there, but I figured we didn't want to miss that. Is Dano still here?
Yes. It's recently come to our attention that the ATF fax machine has been down for about 4+ days at this point. And there's a couple of websites out there that are doing kind of a one-stop shop. The user puts in their zip code, and it will either email or fax the ATF with their information as well as their federal representatives, if they so choose, or put together their own little letter if that's what they want to do. One of the sites, SafeM855.com, has a message. Let me see if I can pull it up here. It has, let's see, since February 27th at 2:35 that the fax machine has been down. We are currently receiving an all circuits busy error message.
And I think what you ought to do is deliver your opinion to ATF by drone.
Well, it just, they give us 3 methods to contact them. One is snail mail, the other is fax, and the other is email.
You could always FedEx them something.
Well,
they've eliminated one of their methods, but
yeah,
maybe they didn't anticipate
contacting them.
Like I say, you can always FedEx them.
That way
if you got the will to do
confirmation or whatever confirmation.
If you got the will to contact them, then you'll find the way to do it. It may cost you more money, but like a second day air letter, a second day air UPS letter would get to them, and it wouldn't cost that terribly much. How much can a second day air letter be? $12? $14? Who cares?
Well, we've got time. We have till March 16th, so you're saying second day so that you get the confirmation or something, or just
second day because it gets there in 2 days, and the UPS is going to get to the door of ATF. It's going to get delivered.
Exactly.
Well, let me just give one other thing here, then I'll let it drop. They have this particular website has delivered over 6,000 to the ATF, and they currently still have over 25,000 in their queue that they're holding on to send to the ATF fax that they cannot send. Now they're not dumping them; they're holding on to them, but they're literally waiting for the ATF to turn their fax machine back on.
Mm-hmm.
And when you turn 1/3 of your communication methods off to what you say you're open to, and you have a cutoff date of March 16th, yes, there are other methods for people to contact them, email being the easiest for most people, but not everybody.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, that's a challenge.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity for a FOIA request for any internal memos about turning off the fax machine.
That's something that Dano's actually been working on. Have you had any experience doing those, Charles?
No. At the state level, yeah. I've never done a federal FOIA. I try real hard to stay out of their wheelhouse. I don't want to get into tangles with the federal government, not because I'm scared to, but because I have my battles picked out here in Arizona, and I just don't want to start engaging on stuff at the federal level.
Sure. That's part of the idea of the whole concept of what we're doing here, having these discussions. We've got 40 people listening at the moment. This will be turned into a podcast, so the audio will go up on both iTunes and over on Stitcher Radio, and hundreds or hopefully thousands of people will listen to this in the future. Hopefully some of those people listening to it on the podcast, it'll be on speakers, that they're maybe playing in the shop. A lot of guys tell us that they'll they appreciate the long the chats that we do like this, because they, it's an alternative to just listening to talk radio in a machine shop, or doing work where they have earphones on airports and stuff. So, but if it is on the speakers, maybe somebody walking by is going to hear some of this. Again, we're leaving, like Dan will keep saying, we're Johnny Appleseed. We're leaving little seeds that they can maybe ask somebody when they get home. Hey, did you hear about this? And we're hopefully getting these conversations going. So.
Mm-hmm. Don't be dissing talk radio.
I was like, normally I would usually go after the big media, but I can't do that when we've got an established big media guy in here.
I'm not really a big media guy.
Well, I have a question, Charles. Are most of your discussions that you have on your radio show, are they mostly people you invite that are even keel, or have you ever had heated discussions, on your program?
Well, I have some heated discussions, but generally speaking, most of the people I interview are either LLDs or PhDs, and which has a tendency to militate against a lot of against any vitriol and very much spark. It's not that I deliberately try and find people who agree with me. It's better radio if they disagree. But the level of discourse is such on the program that you rarely get sparks flying. Every now and then you do. I remember specifically I interviewed a lady named Bernadette Vaduro, who was the daughter of the governor of New Mexico, not at the time, a past governor of New Mexico, and she wrote a book about our thin democracy. I think it was about our democracy being so-called thin. In other words, that the voice of the people was being ignored by government. And she was of the left, and that's fine, and she made some points that were not very good, but the problem was that her documentation didn't support her conclusions. She documented where she got her background info, and so I sourced her quotes in the book with the website she quoted for her background info, and they in fact said the opposite of what she claimed, and it was fraudulent. And I brought that up on the air. I specifically asked why, I stated a page and a point, and then I read from the website that she quoted and said, "It seems to me that your sources disagree with you. Can you explain why that is?" That got a little heated.
Cool, man. I'm honestly, I'm just been informed about your stuff, so I'm not that familiar with it, so it's good to know.
Yeah, I tend not to. Every now and then a caller will call in and say something really inane, and it'll get a little fiery. But it's infotainment. The theory. And I'm sorry, I'm going off of M855 ammo, Pete. So you can shut me down if you want to. But the theory.
Not at all. Please feel free.
Okay, thank you. The theory is that if you're going to have an informed electorate, you got to have good information, and the information can't be given in a way that puts people to sleep. If you get somnambulistic, in other words, you put people to sleep, then they're going to switch the stations. They got a button right handy by that they can turn on any darn thing they want. And if you can't deliver content that's interesting, they're going to switch stations real quick. And I even try and make the commercials so that they don't leave. Try to make them funny and interesting and stuff like that. I got some pretty damn good commercials on there. I got one about going to the range and firing a flintlock that's pretty neat. So, but anyway, that's what I try and do. So, to answer your question, it's frequently interesting and terse, but rarely ever is there a lot of fireworks on it.
Are you syndicated?
Only by gun websites.
I'm honestly, this is why, because I'd love to hear. There's times when you're like on those long drives you have to take on, and it'd be great to hear like somebody's program.
No, I probably could look at going on satellite. I've gotten the program to the stage where I could compete in the national marketplace. I haven't pushed it very hard. I tried about 10, 12 years ago. I tried to get a syndication deal going with several radio stations, and I failed. And I never really pushed it after that. I probably should have just kept trying, and eventually I would have got it. Look at Mark Walters, who's got Armed American Radio, who's not bad, and he's got 250 stations.
Thing is, you can definitely listen to Charles. Like I said, he's got it just available on his website. His audio files he knows how to do them, so they're not very large. You can put very many of them on your cell phone. You just go with your cell phone to his website. Go to the you call it the, what is it called? Sorry, I keep thinking.
Recent shows page for the last 6 months of the program is on.
So there you go. 6 months is 24 shows or so. Actually, 48 since there's Liberty Watch and America Armed and Free.
Right. Yeah, there's 2 hours, but each hour is only about 6 megs.
Right, and then right-click and download. Right-click and save as, I guess.
Yeah.
And you grab them, and they're nice little audio files named so that you can just listen to them, and that's better than being, well, it's not better than being syndicated, but it's for you, all said and done, you can still listen to anything you want with your cell phone.
It's also streamed live. Somebody's playing it right now. I can hear the beginning of the Patriot.
And I apologize for that.
That's okay. It's fun, and I get kind of a kick out of hearing it. I got to tell you, my favorite 25 seconds of the week is when that theme music starts to play, and the announcement comes in, and then the announcement dies off, and there's a certain point in the music where I try to always hit that mark to start talking, and that space in there where there's 15 seconds of music is my favorite 15 seconds of the week. You know.
Well, since we're sort of talking a little bit of radio, we talked about the boards and stuff before. Hopefully I can get you on, because obviously you're mastering the concept of these Hangouts, and hopefully they're pretty convenient. The nice thing about them, too, is we can do them any hour of the day because it's going to be broadcast as a podcast, so whenever it's convenient for you. What I'm trying to do with Gun Channels, one of the things I'm trying to do with it is to foster others at the individual level who are the same way that you must have been one day with a microphone and a recorder, and I was with a camera and then a cell phone with cameras in them, and just sharing what we do. And I think that goes a long way towards keeping firearms. I'm saying keeping, not, well, I should say bringing back firearms into just the normal vernacular of the country or whatever, so it's just an everyday thing like horses or pickup trucks, and just regular people doing their thing. So anyway, to foster that, Gun Channels is going to offer all kinds of tools. It already does, and then we're going to add more tools so that people can take whatever their passion is, if it's photography or if it's audio or if it's videos or if it's something else. We'll keep up with tech, and we'll have this place to put it. So to help that, or to foster that even, I've been doing Gun Channels University, which is just sort of, I don't do anything super scripted, but basically I'm asking if we can get you on sometime in the future when you've got a few to talk about the nuts and bolts of starting a radio show / podcast. And I know some of the guys have had concerns with trying to get guests and how to schedule and how to, I think I've experienced, it's not as easy as just getting people to say yes, because then it's 5 minutes to showtime and you got to figure out what to do because they didn't show up. Kind of
now you're beginning to understand what radio is.
Oh, trust me, I struggle with these podcasts, and I know people do appreciate them, and that's why we're doing them. Definitely don't get paid a dime for them. I don't know anything about marketing. Charles can tell you I'm not good at getting paid for what I do. I just like to play around with this stuff and get creative, but you don't make any money on it. So the idea is that you can do them as much as you have the time, the free time to do them. I don't want to call it free time because I am trying to get something out of it. We promote the channels, right? We promote Charles, so we're trying to get something out of it in return, but for the most part, I just want to encourage other people who want to kind of do this at the hobby level or the ham radio level.
Right. Well, I got to tell you that being a producer is what I'm probably is that my program is made in the preparation, not in the presentation. And what you've got to do is you've got to have a show ready to go so that when your guest doesn't show up, you launch right into it. I had a double no-show 4 weeks ago. Both guests absented themselves on me, and I thought it was pretty good radio because I was ready to go with a backup topic. You always have to have a backup topic. I keep a thumb drive with probably 20 shows on it, so I could, with material to do 20 shows, and I can just, launch into it, as you've heard me do here, kind of probably bore everybody to some extent by going off the topic, but knowing some background about it. The other thing is do shows that are in the area of your interest. If you're interested in building log cabins, and it's your passion to build cool new or find out about cool new log cabins, and you do the log cabin show, then it's going to be interesting because you're interested in it, and you're going to be interesting because you know something about it. So whatever it happens to be, just work in the area of your passion.
Right on. Speaking of passion, I think we should wind it up at some point here. I do appreciate everybody sticking around, and Dana was going to leave earlier. He stuck around. and the guys that were here and had to leave, again, thanks for showing up and participating. This is all about getting conversations going. So again, we have a loose topic of what we're going to keep doing with Every Second Matters, kind of a parallel or a secondary topic of M855. I think we did a pretty good job of hopefully keeping that relevant. That this is something that I continue to say, if we do nothing like we did with the SIG race, and if we do nothing like you did with the 545, then we're asking them to continue slapping us with these things. So we have to, even if you don't care about M855, you don't care about AR pistols, or you think that this slippery slope nonsense is all tinfoil hat, we are literally asking them, we're begging them to continue doing what they're doing, because they've been doing it. It's not a tinfoil hat thing. They've been doing this for the last year now. So and they've given us something to do. We can write a letter. You simply have to print off somebody else's letter, sign your name to it, and send it. Ideally, you're going to tweak that letter a little bit so that it's yours, and then send it, and then you can gripe all you want. As soon as you participate, you have you've earned your right to gripe. If you haven't, then
shut up.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I will say this: you should keep a copy of the letter and probably even send it to yourself, certified mail, and leave it sealed. And then if someone ever comes along and accuses you of making a threat, you can say, oh, I know, I have a copy right here, sent at the same exact time, because it's got the stamp and it's sealed. I can prove that what I said wasn't what you claim it is. Sometimes that's the only thing that saves you, is, you got to assume that government is not your friend, and protect yourself from it.
Thanks. Good point. I wouldn't have thought of that. So we are going to wrap it up a bit. I'll let everybody go through and see if you got anything coming up. Dano, anything coming up? Has this inspired you to start doing a show again yet? Look at how cool Gun Channels is. Hopefully I can at least inspire you to run a channel or two, help run a channel or two.
Well, I just want to throw out one of my little isms, and it's, I didn't originate it, but I really like it, and that's either you're help pushing the wheelbarrow or you're sitting in it.
Huh.
Or you're trying to drag it backwards if you're an anti.
Kicking it over and complaining that it doesn't have enough wheels for everybody.
Right. Spilling the dirt on the ground and saying what a dirty thing a wheelbarrow is.
Z, anything coming up?
Nothing major.
Gun Channels Shoot. Been talking about getting that ready for people that are interested. You guys are got a couple more weeks, and then you're going to start ironing out the dates.
Hopefully so. I was talking to Tactical Six String. It's over a week ago, but we're also trying to think about if regional might be an option for some that wouldn't be able to attend. So they go to the Gun Channel Shoot group page, channel, and if you happen to have a range in your area, put a link in there. If there's anybody else in your area, maybe we can get them to see that, and we might be able to do regional shoots as well.
Yeah, like the forums have done a lot, and other people, you get together and you BS and have a barbecue or something. Right on.
Right.
Thanks for starting that up. I've got Edge. What's happening? Is he still here? He's watching a movie. Is he here? He's off mute. All right, well, he does the show on Fridays, and I guess he's asleep or something.
And he would tell you to send an email to APAcomments@atf.gov.
Alpha Propa Alpha, correct?
Yep, comments@atf.gov.
All right, that'll bring us to no.
Come on over to gunchannels.com. If you're not a member, join for free. Check out the group Texas Gun Rights. Everybody's welcome. Obviously, it's centered around Texas, but more importantly, since it's in its infancy, any comments or feedbacks or features you'd like to see, just leave a message there. And when you hashtag, always remember to include Gun Channels in your hashtags.
Thanks. And Charles, what do you got coming up?
You mean this weekend?
Sure, or in general.
Well, this weekend, I don't know, that's a long time from now to ask me to remember what's coming up on the program. But let's see, I've got to look at my I used to say Palm, look at my BlackBerry here, my modern device. Yeah, I just got this BlackBerry too. What shows? Gosh, I'm really glad you asked. I don't have a show booked this weekend in either hour. I better get off my tail assembly and start doing that. But if people want to look into more of the episodes of my show, they can look at libertywatchradio.com and go on the recent shows page or the archive for some of the golden oldies. And if people would like some advice on how to start a podcast, I don't know that much. I can tell you how to record things and how to process them so they're easier to listen to if somebody wants to do that. If somebody wants to email me, my email address is Charles Heller, my name, Charles Heller at AZCDL. It's Arizona Citizens Defense League, azcdl.org, or you can use Charles Heller at jpfo.org. Any one of them will get to me. Or Charles at libertywatchradio.com, and that'll get to me. If anybody wants to send me an email and ask me how to do this or that, I also produce a lot of content. I do some comedy routines. For the beginning of my program, a feature called This Just In, where I take some event in the news and then I make some twist of it to turn it into a humorous bit. And I just sent one to Pete. I don't know if you can play a sound file where everybody can hear it, or I don't know if I played a sound file. It's a 52-second bit, but it's funny as hell, and it's about net neutrality. That basically says this just in, that the FCC has declared their new program.
I've got it, but I suspect if you play it, you're going to figure out how to make it come through better. So,
well, I can try that. I don't know if I can make it go or not. If it'll be loud enough coming out of my computer, but I'll try it. But it's funny. It's 52 seconds, and if you guys want to bear with me for a second and nobody minds, I'll do this. Let's see. This just in. And it's the 3.8 version. Here it is.
Oh, can you hear us? It's really low.
They are beginning beta testing of their new transmit at same energy requirement, or TASER protocol. Users attempting to order faster internet speed will receive a mild shock, with the intensity of the shock increasing with repeated attempts to improve internet speed.
Oh, no, we lost it completely.
Hey, G.
Yep.
Is Charles a member on Gun Channels?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was your question? I couldn't hear it over the sound file.
Sorry, no, it came in really soft, and yeah, I guess you couldn't hear us, so we kind of just paused there.
I heard some talking, but I couldn't hear what it was over the sound file was louder in my ears than it was evidently in yours. Sorry, I blew 53.
Well, we'll post it on Gun Channels, so anybody that's listening to this can just play it.
Click on it, yeah. Or if anybody wants to email me, I'll send it to them. Or if you want me to make one up custom, if I don't get a tremendous amount of requests, if you've got something you want to make fun of in your locality, if you're not here in Tucson, and you want some custom, send me like one paragraph on what the problem is. I'll write a script and I'll put that music bed with the Morse code beeps and that's called a sounder at the beginning of a news program, and I'll put that sounder in and put it over the sound of a typewriter and read it and send it back to you. Make it a minute or less. And some of them are pretty damn funny. I've got some just wickedly critical ones of the current occupant of the White House and the stupid trolley system we built here in Tucson and several other things that are I make wicked fun out of.
That's an excellent offer you're giving people too, because again, hopefully people that are listening to this in the context of the Gun Channels and fostering, creating a new channel, that might be something they might use. And if anybody's listened to some of the, I don't know, maybe I'm guessing conservatively 2,000 videos we've got up on YouTube that end with a guy saying, "Guys and gals at gun websites, I want to thank you." I can't even remember. It's been a while, but that's Charles saying all that, and hopefully I will be able to talk him in and help him out to get something at the end of all this, because this is how I end my podcast, and this ain't all that professional. So I also forget to do all the things to plug all the stuff where you can support the podcast. So let me try to remember everything. If you're listening to this on YouTube, then I don't care what you do, because YouTube, it's YouTube. So I guess thumbs up it or go subscribe to like Edge or Dano or somebody if you're on YouTube. And if you're on podcast, if you're listening on iTunes, give us whatever it is, a star or a smiley face, little rating if you like the show or if you don't like the show, and then give us some feedback so that we get some idea of what we should do. If you really like the professionalism that some shows offer, I have Charles right here, so definitely have a resource where I can learn that stuff if that's what people are looking for. I'm lazy and sloppy, so I go for more of the, whatever, you get what you get thing. But leave us some feedback. Let us know. Because if we don't get feedback, you're asking for me to just be lazy. So that's what you're going to get. So if you're on the Stitcher Radio, same thing. There's some sort of a feedback method over there. But really the best thing to do is support us, right? Give us some encouragement financially. And you can do that with, I guess we're on Every Second Matters. So that would be checking out the crowdsourcing thing we got going right now to buy one of these patches. So we don't do them for profit. We don't do them for non-profit and make a couple of bucks on the patch order. But trust me, the patch order, you see it. It's on crowdsourcing. They $300 or something, $600 comes in. So I don't know how much profit you possibly think people are making on these things. That's gonna get these patches out there and get them shipped, and that's the way you can support this show. If you're listening to one of the other podcasts, buy a patch or buy one of the mugs or something. And like I say, Charles will help me get this to be a little bit more professional, hopefully. And
I have a stupid question. Where is the send button when you type in the chat? How do you hit send?
Are you talking on the internal chat here? Just hit enter.
Yeah. Just hit enter.
Sorry, carriage return for you old people.
Yeah, it dinged and I just moved the carriage back. Yeah.
I'm sure that joke is. I'm so old. That joke went over a lot of people's heads anyway.
There you go.
Anyway. Oh.
All right.
Okay.
I hit send. Okay, go ahead.
So thanks everyone for joining us, and again, you get what you get. We do appreciate you sticking with us and listening. We've had a pretty decent audience tonight, and it's all about keeping the conversation going. So.
Good chat, man. I liked it.
Thanks, Edge. Now I know. Now I'm satisfied.
Now you're satisfied.
Now we can end it.
And Charles, I have heard